Welcome to the Backlash, a weekly discussion about the past, present, and future of the Western world. I am your host, Rebecca Hargraves. You may know me and be watching me on my YouTube channel right now, Blonde in the Belly of the Beast. I am flanked by my dear friend and producer, Dave Riley.
Thank you very much. It's great to be here.
Mr. Vincent James.
Hello. Good evening.
And the irreplaceable Cameron McGregor. Welcome, fellas.
Present and accounted for.
All right. We're all here.
I know. I had a totally different idea of what we were going to talk about this week, and then this Fuentes assassination thing happened. We have to talk about that.
Yes.
I don't want to start the show every week by saying, "Wow, it's been a jam-packed news week," but it truly has. We have a lot to discuss. I mean, this Fuentes thing. A few weeks ago, I heard Fuentes say Luigi Mangione and the left lionizing Luigi Mangione is going to pave the way for other shooters to be ideologically motivated. And that seems to be exactly the situation that he's in right now. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about this femcell shooter, Candace Owens, Anti-Semite of the Year. We're going to talk about Tim Pool. What's going on in Europe, these crazy drones. We have a lot in store for you guys tonight. So welcome and thank you so much, everybody, for joining us.
Yeah. Fun stuff. We never know what we're going to talk about really until like a few minutes, just a few minutes before the show actually begins, which...
That is incorrect.
That's the way that it needs to be. We just need to be just like flowing through this here. We never know what's going to happen. Stuff is happening. Things are happening.
I hate everything that you just said. I hate everything about that.
A dude just showed up to Nick's house with a literal crossbow.
Oh, I know.
In one hand and a gun in the other hand, right? It was like a gun and a crossbow.
Yeah, we've got the clip. We've got the clip.
Yeah, let's dive right in.
Here it is. Good job, Dave. That was quick.
Shh. Because doesn't he yell his name?
It's in the second clip. He's like, "Hello," or "Yo, Nick."
Is it the second clip? Mm-hmm. So he came to the door twice, or?
I'm not sure. I don't think so. I think that the...
Wait, what is that? Is that a crossbow?
Yeah. Yeah.
How is it laying flat? Oh, it's folded. Okay.
Anyway. I didn't hear it, but he did. He went up to his door and he said, "Hey, Nick."
Yeah. Yo, Nick.
So there's been a lot of people on the internet that have been trying to claim that, this wasn't really an assassination attempt. This was just like a deranged shooter. No. He showed up to Nick's apartment, house, and called for him by name with a gun, with a crossbow, during a period where Nick has been getting harassed since the election. And
a police statement came out, which of course says that the would-be assassin committed a triple homicide right before this. This happened yesterday evening, and the triple homicide happened in the afternoon. There's a series of tweets, but he also had broken into the next door neighbor's home, shot the neighbor's dogs, 2 dogs. And
the next door neighbor's
the
home?
next door neighbor of Nick, yeah.
Here,
I didn't know that.
I've got the original tweet thread we can read. Last night, an armed killer, this is Nick Fuentes' tweet. Last night, an armed killer made an attempt on my life at my home, which was recently doxed on this platform. The gunman carried a pistol, crossbow, and incendiary devices. I believe he intended to kill me. He's now dead. I'm okay. According to police, the would-be assassin committed a triple homicide in southern Illinois early yesterday before he arrived at my doorstep with his pistol drawn, calling my name. I'm grateful that I'm still alive today. Tragically, the gunman broke into a neighbor's home to evade police and killed 2 of their dogs. While heartbreaking, it could have been so unimaginably worse. God have mercy. Doxing is not a game. This nihilistic lynch mob behavior must end before anyone else is killed. I will now have to uproot my life and relocate while I can handle whatever comes to my front door. It's irresponsible to expect my neighbors with young families to share the burden. In the meantime, I will have to contract 24-hour security to protect myself and my property. And then there's a tweet where he's asking for donations. I'm sure you can find that nicholasjfuentes.com.
Wait, so the dude's dead? The dude got shot?
The guy that showed up at Nick's house
By the police?
got shot dead by the police.
Oh,
And
okay.
so apparently what had happened earlier in the day is the guy, I've seen reports that he was a homosexual, that he murdered his boyfriend, his sister, and his mother, and then got in his car, drove 3 hours to Chicago, where he got out and then, calls Nick by name.
Holy shit, he was going to try to rape him, probably. You said he was gay?
That's what I saw in the group chat, Vinny.
He was going to try to rape Nick at gunpoint. That's probably what he was
that's a
there
crazy
for.
twist.
But it wasn't his next door neighbor. It was just a neighbor. Because I've been to his apartment complex, and it's like, yeah, it's like it's multiple apartments right inside of there. So he's just gonna have to rent that out.
Yeah.
Because the next door neighbor, I think, is also apartment complex as well. I think it's also a duplex. I could be wrong. It might just be a single family home, but. So it wasn't the next door neighbor that he shot. It was just a neighbor. Could be somewhere
Well, he
in the
didn't shoot
neighborhood.
the neighbor. He shot
their dogs.
He shot the neighbor's
Right.
dogs.
But the next door neighbor,
I don't know.
right next door, or just a neighbor?
A neighbor.
Oh, that's crazy.
He says a neighbor.
I wonder how that worked out. I mean, like, did the cops show up and then he left Nick's and like ran into a neighbor's house, then shot the dogs, then gets in a shootout with the police? I mean, there's got to be a lot of body cam footage that, well, they probably have it under investigation, so we can't get it. But
Well, the police. I mean, a lot of the stuff from the original person that showed up to his house, that fat chick with all the buttons. Did
Yes.
you see all her
Yeah.
buttons?
Oh my God.
What was her name? Marla. Her last name escapes me.
Marla.
I don't know, but I think it was it Beardson who tweeted out a photo, and he was like, no, he said something like, "You can't be sane if you have that many buttons." And she had like pins. They were buttons. They were like pinned buttons all over her shirt, like 100 of them. And a lot of that body camera footage came out pretty quick. And also there was like some footage that came out from the police station. Did you guys see that?
Yeah.
Which I've never seen that happen. Like, I haven't seen that happen. There was like footage of Nick getting frisked by the police at the police station
Weird. Well,
from the police cameras. So who's releasing that?
you probably can get it from a FOIA request.
Yeah, but I mean that was quick. I mean, it would just happen. Happened fairly recently.
No matter. I'm sure this was frightening for Nick, but this is so good for his case because it just shows that there were genuine threats on his life and that he was appropriately scared when she showed up to his house. He's like, people want to kill me. I don't think you guys understand. And he's right. People do want to kill him.
There she is.
I can't find the photo of her with all the pins.
With the buttons.
Duh.
Yeah.
But that's the creature from Jekyll Island that came to Nick's house.
And he maced her.
I mean,
Well,
in retrospect, doesn't this look so justified then?
Oh, yeah, totally.
The macing. And then I think after watching the police report from when he was with Marla, and he's talking about how many attempts had been, people had been like 30 times, he said, like 30 people had come by earlier in that one day.
Yeah.
So I mean, it kind of puts you more into in his headspace.
Yeah.
And I think it makes that whole incident look more justifiable. Frankly.
Well, the thing is that even if it wasn't like if it was just a normal person in Berwyn and they got, they had these people show up to their house, right, that want to kill them or like want to do harm to them, then I think that it wouldn't be that big of a deal. But the fact that it's Nick, and even the police said, I think at one point they call you like in this most recent thing, or he was like, they call you a white supremacist, and he's like, well, I'm not a white supremacist or whatever.
Right.
I don't know if you saw that video.
I did.
So if they want to go after him,
I'm not a white supremacist.
a Mexican,
Mexican.
right? Just if they want to go after him, they're going to figure out a way to go after him.
Yeah.
Right. I don't think this does any. If that's their goal, if that's their intention to lock him up because they want to get rid of him, I don't think that this does anything for him.
Well, and I guess that leads me to a different question, which is who bears the responsibility for this, right? Because there's a big part of me and a big part of people online that actually think that Elon Musk bears some of this responsibility
For allowing it online.
for allowing Nick's
Or on
docs to allow on Twitter and get 15, 20, 30 million impressions since the election. You know, if it was anybody else, as a matter of fact, when it happened to J.D. Vance, right? Like some journalist wrote a piece about J.D. Vance and it contained his home address. Immediately, Elon banned the journalist that put it out, and he banned every single account that retweeted it. But when it's Nick Fuentes' address that gets doxxed on the internet, nothing.
Yep.
He doesn't stop anything. He lets it go. And frankly, I am not entirely convinced that this isn't part of some deep state conspiracy to get Nick, frankly. Because when you look at how, I was going to mention this, there was a moment in 1986 here in Coeur d'Alene, and I think everybody knows by now that the Aryan Nation's headquarters used to be here in North Idaho.
Here, no.
No. And so in 1986, a member of the Jewish Defense League, a radical terrorist organization that was backed by the Mossad, his name was Mordecai Levy, got a bunch of articles posted in the local newspapers here saying that he would give $1,000 to anybody that brings him a Nazi scalp. And that got reprinted in the Idaho Statesman, the Chronicle, the Coeur d'Alene Press. And within the week, a crazy person showed up at Dave and Deborah Doerr's house with an automatic gun and shot up the front of their house in an attempted murder because of that hit that was essentially put out in the press. So now here we are, it's 2024. It's still the same. It's still the same, but now they're using digital means. Now they're using Twitter. Now they're using these kind of like echo chamber algorithms where they can target and isolate one single person, drive him crazy, and make him go off and do an insane act. I just want to say that should be on the table. It's not as crazy as I think it is.
Cam, you wanted to say something?
I mean, I don't have much to add on this subject except, you know, I always think in terms of the bigger picture, as I think you guys know, look, this is just the beginning. This is just the beginning of where we're headed. I would just say a couple things. I think a lot of what's happening today reminds me of the 1960s, 68 in particular. That was the year Nixon was elected. Lots of assassination attempts, lots of bombings, race riots, open violence in city streets, et cetera, et cetera. I think that is in our immediate future. I would just say in broad strokes, there's three things. One is social media, as Dave alluded to, has definitely changed the game and perhaps exacerbated the potential for danger in ways that are fundamentally different than the past. That's pretty clear. Secondly, I also think part of the reason you're seeing this is because the legacy structure, I know people like to use the deep state term. I don't. I just call it the state. The institutions of power, they're losing authority. They're losing the confidence of the population. Their power is slipping out of their hands. And so what do? When you sense that? You lash out.
Yeah.
And you find various modes to do that. Again, perhaps Dave is right. Maybe that's what happened in this case. I don't know. And then lastly, I would say I think this demonstrates very clearly that the right wing, if that's what you want to call it, I would just say the nationalism of the country is rising. There is our side is gaining momentum. And so there's tremendous fear in the halls of power, if you will, that they could lose. And so as a result, you're going to start to see more of this. Final point on this is when institutions are wobbling, that's when they're the most dangerous. Yeah. When regimes are under fire, that's when you start to see untoward, erratic behavior. And bear in mind, this is not unique to the United States. It's happening all over Europe. A lot of your opposition leaders in European Parliament, they are subverted, undermined. I mean, remember, AfD had members that were attacked openly in public in Germany over the summer. So anyway, the point is, I think this is part of the much larger whole, and we're going into some very dangerous times as a result.
I do want to say something about that. What you just mentioned, Dave, about the Aryan nations getting all the threats from Mordecai Levy, and then people showing up to their compound. Well, after that, there was the woman who is the source of the lawsuit that happened to them.
Vicky Keenan.
Right? And she was supposedly Native American, but if you actually look at her, she looks white. Like, if you look at her picture, she looks white.
A Elizabeth Warren moment.
Well, so they're scared from this, these people showing up to their compound because of these articles being printed with the quote from Mordecai Levy. And so it's a very similar situation.
Actually, no. I've got to stop you there. The difference is actually 15 years. So the
it's a 15-year window.
No, so the threats that I was talking about happened in 1985 and 1986, and the reprisals happened within a week of them being put in the newspaper. The Vicky Keenan issue happened in 1999.
So that was 15 years later.
That was 15 years
So there
later,
wasn't anyone else.
It was totally separate, a totally separate issue.
She had like a muffler and it blew out or something, and they thought,
allegedly. I mean, there's a lot of weird coincidences and stuff there, too.
But legally, there has to be immediate temporality, right? Like, there has to be the threat, and then there has to be the follow through within a certain time period for it to even be
right. And none of that was there. And from what I've been told, actually, it was a drug deal gone wrong. That the woman had sold the Aryans some bunk drugs, and that they opened fire on her car. The official story is that Sean Keenan, the woman's nephew, dropped the wallet out the window, and they pulled over and stopped to pick it up. It happened to be in front of the Aryan Nation's compound, and then when they got in the car, it backfired, and then the Aryans started firing. It's a nonsense story.
It's crazy, though, when you think about it, because like a lot of people, most people don't even know about that, and then they got sued, and then the money, or part of the money that they got from the lawsuit, they used to build like liberal organizations here in Coeur d'Alene.
Yeah.
And so my point is like, it doesn't matter what actually happened. Right? It doesn't matter if there was a threat and Nick was legitimately scared for his life and now he has to move. If they want to get you, they're going to get you. Whether it's by charging you with a crime, or if they can't charge you with a crime, they're going to sue you into non-existence, like they've done to so many people.
That's true, but they're playing a dangerous game with Nick. Can you imagine if all of these groypers are militarized?
Imagine if he died.
Yes. Can you imagine how the community would react to that?
Not well.
They must know this.
Not well.
Well,
and that could be part of it, to radicalize and continue escalation, to continue, making Americans fight one another, contentious with one another.
It could be. I mean, look at what they did, what they tried to do to Daniel Penny.
Right.
If Daniel Penny happened 4 years ago, he would be locked in prison.
Right.
Yep.
Right? Because it was just so far enough away from the whole Black Lives Matter thing that he actually got off. But like Chauvin, and I talked about this before, there were articles that were talking about how if Chauvin didn't get convicted locally, that the feds already had charges lined up for him.
Wow.
So if they don't get you locally, then there's going to be federal crimes. If they can't get you with federal crimes, then they're gonna do a lawsuit on you, and then you're gonna go down in whatever way that they can take you down. So if they want him, they're gonna come and get him. And in whatever way. But this is crazy. I mean, this is crazy. I mean, we're, allow doxes of Nick on Twitter. And I just tweeted this out the other day. I said, we live in a day and age where TikTok is banned, right? They're trying to ban TikTok, but, OnlyFans is allowed up.
Right.
And you got these chicks on there that are like boasting about getting banged by 100 dudes.
Oh, my God.
And then you've got like Nick's doxes up there. It's insane.
Yeah.
Well, one other thing I would add to this, because I know that whenever things like this happen, people understandably get very concerned about not just the livelihoods of people that express an opposition view, but also that opposition will survive. Look, this isn't going to stop anything. It's not going to stop the right wing in this country. If anything, it's going to strengthen it. Our momentum is gaining traction. And this effort to chop the head of the snake off, if you will, in this case, or censor people, it's just going to make our side get stronger.
Yeah.
I think that's absolutely true. I am very concerned that this is some kind of government push to eradicate us, not just online, but in real life. I mean, if the shooter, if Nick had been assassinated, the shooter would be lionized in the same way that Luigi Mangione would. And then all of these people, we're about to talk about the femcell shooter, all of these people that have nothing to live for. I'm thinking about the Brenton Tarrant situation in New Zealand. He talked about how, in his manifesto, which was excellent, he talked about how he had nothing left to live for. And so his last effort in life was this ideological, this big bang that he was going to go out in. And it's how many people are doing stuff like that. And that's exactly what the femcell shooter said in her manifesto, which was 0 out of 10 manifesto.
All of these manifestos suck.
Brett and Terrence's manifesto is excellent. What about Ted Kaczynski?
Ted, now.
Okay, that was
listen.
yeah, I'll agree with that. That was manifesto.
So
we
that
talked
was
about
best.
that.
It was
No
the best.
matter if you're gonna do this, if you've got to have a well-written edit people.
For
edit.
God's sakes, Luigi.
I'm not just saying
Luigi
that.
goes, I'm not even gonna write. Just go read an article.
Yeah. I'm not just saying that just because it's a New York Times bestseller. It was legitimately good. Dude was smart, Kaczynski.
Yeah.
I did want to say something about the health CEO. What was the company's name?
United Healthcare.
United Healthcare. So I said this the other day on Twitter. I was like, you have a lot of these left-wing people that are like boasting or propping this dude, the Mangione, up. A lot of people are on TikTok. There's people making songs about him. And the thing is you cannot complain about the healthcare system, or you cannot say that the healthcare system is corrupt, or talk about how big pharma is so corrupt after this Mangione shooting if you pushed the mask mandates and the vaccine shit and all of the rest of the shit that big pharma and Pfizer was pushing back during COVID. Like, how can you say both things at the same time? How can you say that? Like,
well, it goes back even to Obamacare, for God's sakes.
Right.
If you're really upset with healthcare, but you're sitting there asking for Medicaid expansion, asking for more Obamacare, this is exactly the problem that brought us to where we are, idiot.
And how do these people COVID just disappeared? It's done. Like, no one talks about it anymore. It's just completely gone. And you've got these people that big pharma made more. Like 3 times more money off the vaccine in 1 year than they did off of OxyContin in 30 years. You think that they've changed? You think that they've changed from trying to poach FDA employees to come work for Pfizer? Like, no, they haven't changed. It's worse.
Yeah.
It's worse.
It's worse because they're expanding. They're taking all of these profits. They're building additions to the hospitals, creating more infrastructure.
But his impetus was a personal dispute. So I understand where you're coming from with this.
Right, but a lot of left-wing people are like, oh, man, the guys are... And then
but that's not why he did it.
Right, and then there's all these songs on TikTok I'm seeing that are getting like billions of views of like singing about the healthcare and like, talking about Mangione. Anyway, I do want to say something before we move on to the next segment about what Cam said about the 1960s. There was a lot of stuff going on back then that's very similar to what's going on today. You had the Weather Underground movement. Mm-hmm. That's something that...
You had the 1968 DNC riots.
Which
was coordinated and started, by the way, by the same FBI agent that was going after the Aryan Nations, the drunk, alcoholic, absent father that's in that movie, The Order, which I highly recommend you go see.
Yeah.
Very good. But, there's a lot of connections.
Susan Goldberg was like who was involved in that whole was it Susan Goldberg? I don't know. She was the treasurer for a while for the Black Lives Matter Foundation. She was involved. I think Bill Clinton actually pardoned her
and
like
Bill
2
Ayers.
weeks before. And Bill Ayers, Bernardine Dohrn.
Mm-hmm.
The DA for San Francisco for a while was the adopted son of Bill Ayers and Bernardine Dohrn. And he got recalled actually in San Francisco, which is surprising because he just kept letting black people out of prison. He actually called the victims he called the victims of violent crimes by phone, like his office called them and asked them to reduce their charges to help him create restorative justice in San Francisco. And he just got so bad that he got recalled.
Yeah.
Anyway, we can move on.
Thank you,
Vince. Go ahead.
But speaking of Luigi Mangione and Nick and the Groypers, there is going to be this epidemic, although Luigi wasn't really like this. He had a lot to live for. He wasn't a disaffected young man. But this femcell shooting was shocking because it's so infrequently is a woman in these situations, or is a girl. She was 15-year-old Natalie Samantha
Rupnick?
Is this wrong? I have Rupno written down.
Rupno.
She killed 2 people, injured 6 people at Abundant Life Christian school in Madison, Wisconsin, and then she shot herself in the head. So I was listening to something about her today. She came from a super dysfunctional family. Her parents had broken up and gotten remarried 3 times in her life.
What?
Gotten divorced, gotten remarried 3 times. She was 15. Her mom was a single mom that her alcoholic father married. And then at the time, she was being pushed back and forth. She was trying to decide what parent to spend the holidays with. She was getting passed around. She had a half sister. The whole thing was just, super messed up. And if you read her terrible manifesto, it reads like a female autist that had an unstable, a borderline personality disorder, that had an unstable upbringing. And so I think we're seeing this convergence of people that have pre-existing, maybe some ability to develop some mental health issues, and then they grow up in an unstable environment. And then the third thing is that the culture is totally unstable. And so I thought this was really interesting. It was misreported that Rad Femme Hitler, who I recently interviewed, was
Great.
I know, right?
Great.
Was mentioned in the manifesto. That's not true. Although, as far as I can tell, this Discord
The Discord post, I think
it probably is true. I mean, I don't know. So a lot of people are trying to implicate Rad Femme Hitler in this, and the implications here are really large. To what extent are people online responsible for how other people behave? And people are going to say that Nick influences groypers and things like that. And there's really no responsibility. I remember when I started my YouTube channel, this was years and years ago, somebody that was subscribed to me went to New York and killed this black homeless guy with a sword.
What?
Because he wanted to, it was racially motivated. He wanted to kill a black guy. And so a lot of the people had, in the media had released who he was subscribed to.
Oh, right.
Chose a sword to do it.
Yeah, it was totally unhinged and bizarre. But there were some people that were like, yeah, you're responsible for that. I'm like, I'm not responsible for what one person did. But because people hate Rad Femme Hitler, because they hate Nick Fuentes, then they are going to try to implicate them in the actions of people that follow their work.
Well, so to be fair, this screenshot, which we are showing for our viewers on screen, this is a screenshot that was taken from Discord, apparently using some sort of slang that Rad Femme Hitler was...
Moids?
Voids or foids or... Moids. I don't know what. But I guess to kind of bring this to connection with our last story, Nick's followers get persecuted.
Yeah.
Right? I've been attacked for being in Nick's vicinity. We've all been attacked. And so that kind of leads people to be anonymous on the internet. And that's kind of like one of the hallmarks of groypers is they're anonymous.
Right.
I'm not a groyper. I'm not anonymous. I've always used my name. So the point of this is that what's I think going on now is people from hostile movements that are against what America First stands for are creating these groyper accounts and doing things that agitate.
Yes, I think so too.
To give groypers a bad name, to give Nick a bad name, and then to pin the blame of all of their actions on Nick.
Exactly.
Or they're straight up getting paid to do that.
Well, right.
Remember that social, what was that company called? Social something that did that whole campaign to go after Nick. Influenceable that went after that whole campaign. Or went after Nick with the whole campaign. Mm-hmm. And then you have this other guy that that got fired from who recently, Christopher Rufo, right? Mm-hmm. Fired him. What's his name?
Chris Burnett,
right? He got fired by Rufo, and he figured out it was because of like some of the things that he was saying about Israel, which, how many times have we seen that? And then he was very friendly with Nick. In fact, I invited him on the show once. He said he was too nervous to talk in front of people. Mm-mm. And then all of a sudden he turns on him. And now every tweet
is about Nick.
Every tweet is about Nick.
Yeah.
Cameron, to what extent do you think this is contrived, and to what extent do you think this is organic? Both what Vince is talking about and these shooters.
It's hard to say because there are a lot of very screwed up people on the left, as you know. And again, it's not as easy to launch subterranean campaigns as people think, right? It's just it's somewhat of a tricky endeavor. That being said, yeah, some of it is absolutely. Some of it is the state. Some of it is some of it is driven by the three-letter agencies. I have no doubt about that. All the more reason why we have to organize ourselves. Got to protect ourselves, right? And pretending that we can sort of operate independently and express dissident views alone, that's not going to fly anymore. So the stronger we get, the more vulnerable we get in some sense. And that's really, I think, the teachable moment of all of this. We'll have to see what comes out. I don't know. My own sense is that the left is becoming increasingly unhinged. I mean, look, that's how they operate anyway. You're just seeing who they really are. This puts a lie again to the notion that propaganda controls everything. This is a point I belabor. I know that, but ultimately, if you go back through history, how does the left win? Through violence. Always. Right. Every single time. So we got to wake up and get prepared to deal with that.
Yeah, the one thing I was going to say about this Christian school shoot, it was a Christian school.
Uh-huh.
So that's like one of the first times because that was like one of my arguments going back when I was debating destiny on the Jesse Lee Peterson podcast, where you barely see non-public school shootings. It's always public school shootings. It's very rare that you see like, has there ever been a shooting at a Catholic school?
Probably.
Yeah.
Maybe, who knows how many.
What about that
right?
tranny shooting? Wasn't that a Christian school as well?
So now we're seeing this now. It's very weird that now we're seeing, well, I think as admissions get a lot more lax, right? In terms, because it used to be when I was going, like you had to be, like there were rules to get to actually get accepted into a Catholic school. Right. And, now these things are getting a lot more lax, and you're starting to see these shootings now happen at like Catholic and Christian schools. It's very weird. And then I don't know if I sent you something on Telegram, to your personal Telegram. There was a map that someone posted on Twitter, and it was showing the prevalence of autism in certain parts of the country. I don't know, this also is like where most people live. I get it. But if you look at California, it doesn't really line up. It's pretty strange.
That looks like where the white people live.
Yeah, it's very weird. It almost looks like the Lyme disease map, which is another government operation for another day we could talk about. But you see, it's where was this Christian school at? What state did this take place in?
Wisconsin.
So right up there.
This is diagnosis drift, I think, because white leftist elites are more susceptible to doctors being like, your kid's autistic. This is why they're saying neurodivergence. Now, a lot of things that people are saying are autism are simply just being weird.
Yeah, maybe. My brother's autistic. He's not functional. He lives with my parents still.
That's genuine autism, though.
He's genuinely, well, I think there's obviously is a spectrum. All I'm saying is like, there's a lot of weird shit going on. And
she did have some autistic tendencies, the shooter.
I thought you called her, because I didn't look too much into it, but I thought you said she was autistic, or you were just saying. I think she was on the spectrum in some way. She had major social problems, but she did have a boyfriend. And then the way that her manifesto read, like the cadence of it was very bizarre, like very, very bizarre. So,
you know what really bothered me was the fact that she didn't capitalize all of her I's. It was like hit or miss. It was hit or miss with it. It wasn't consistent, and that bothered. If it was all lowercase, like an E.E. Cummings statement, like, okay, fine. But it wasn't. It was just poor grammar all the way.
She had a comma problem and just run-on sentences. The whole thing was a disaster. Why have we taken up half of this segment talking about the grammar? Because I feel like if you're going to go out in an incredible blaze of glory, then your manifesto you better have tidied that up. Good Lord.
Well, that's just it. I mean, I think that there's something going on now that is radicalizing people that is not normal, that is a novel thing. And I guess maybe I've just, smoked too much tinfoil or something, which is entirely possible. But I remember having specifically a conversation with like Zach Voorhees He was the Google whistleblower back in 2019 or 2020. And I spoke with him, and he told me that they had technology to be able to put individuals in echo chambers where you could, on your phone, wake up, roll out of bed, look at your phone. Phone says it's the end of the world. And then you take your phone and walk over to your computer. Computer senses the phone near you, and it presents to you the false information. You go to the library.
Can
it
you
tracks
imagine?
you. And it IP addresses you. You see what I mean? And so there would literally be no way for you to find out through the internet whether or not something you're being presented with is real or fake. So it could warp your perception of reality. And nobody around would ever know.
Well,
because it's all interacting digitally.
Unless you intentionally follow people with a totally opposite perspective.
Unless you follow like the BAP network, in which case they'll radicalize you for fun.
Yeah,
like,
they'll radicalize you to be
what
Jewish.
Allegedly happened with this Natalie Rupno. I've heard that there was a lot of connections that she was following everybody. Captive Dreamer 7 follows, and all these people in the Thiel network.
But that's every algorithm of every social media platform, right? I mean, if you just go on TikTok right now and you make an account and then you skip past every, like, let's say you want to do like baseball, you skip past everything else until it gets to a baseball video, and then you watch the full baseball video. Well, then the algorithm's only going to show you baseball video for like the next week.
Yep.
So
that's how that works.
And that's how that works. And then I'm sure it works with politics the same way.
Yep.
And it seems to be the case that only conservative people really, for the most part, are the ones who follow the opposite, right? We're following the left-wing journalists on Twitter. We're
and then
following
doing the opposite of what they say.
Right.
Yeah.
YouTube has clearly cooked the books, though, because even now, so I've been watching a lot of Candace Owens. We're about to talk about her. But still, when it autoplays, it always autoplays to Sky News or Jordan Peterson. And I never watch either of them, ever. So I know that they're trying to feed us information that we did not ask for.
Yeah.
And they're doing that deliberately in much the way that you describe it. That is a frightening thing to think about.
This phenomenon did, in fact, kind of happen to the dissident right wing in late 2019, actually. We were all served videos showing people having like seizures in China and like collapsing in the trains.
Oh, yeah.
I was radicalized by that.
Everybody on the right wing that I know, and I saw the videos too, showing people getting like welded into their apartment buildings. And then all of that turned out to be fake.
Yep.
We were all the ones saying, we got to do something about this. There's a disease coming. You got to shut down the border.
Dude, I had
Cameron,
gas
did you
masks.
ever fall for
3 months.
COVID?
Did Cameron ever fall for
No, but I don't consume a lot of social media, right? So that's the thing. That's the difference between, I suppose, me and most folks. But
Were you in America when it started, when it rolled out?
No, I was not. I was in Thailand, actually. Well, I was in Hong Kong and then I was in Thailand. So I had just escaped, actually. I knew people that were stuck in Hong Kong and locked up. And you just have to understand, in Asia, because of the volume of people, so wearing a mask is quite normal in that part of the world, because typically if you're sick, you don't want to spread it, and vice versa. And the volume of people is so great. I mean, there's just it makes no sense to people in the United States, but you just have to understand that you go outside your front door, you walk around, there are just waves upon waves upon waves of people. Okay. So in China, I think they had an outbreak of the bubonic plague at the same time as COVID, by the way. A lot of people in the West don't know that. So they have a persistent fear of instability. It runs deep. And it's part of the reason why the Chinese support authoritarian regimes, because they understand that that's necessary to stabilize those situations, and they will sacrifice their freedom for that. I would just say, look, I think I deal with a lot of young men, because a lot of what I talk about focuses on young men, particularly in the United States, but across the West. And the level of psychological damage that has been done to them in particular, I think, is just hard to put into words, right? We know the statistics. We know a lot of them are unemployed. And some of these unemployment numbers are just horrendous. I think the unemployment number in Spain among young men is in like the high 20 percentile. Okay, so you're approaching that like third of the population that's not gainfully employed at all. And I think similar numbers exist in the United States, the United Kingdom. I just think it's underrepresented. But young men are traumatized. They are. And there are various reasons for that. Some of this is a lack of community. There are no safeguards, right? That's the number one question you ask. Where are the safeguards that are going to prevent some of these disastrous shootings? Where are the parents? Well, they're not there. Either the family's fractured or it's a single parent household, usually a woman.
Right.
That's especially problematic for men. Oftentimes there's no other mentorship or authority figure at all. Nobody in the school system pays any attention. I used to be a teacher. I saw that. There's no religious community of note for a lot of these kids. So they're left to just sort of spiral. And the result of that is, I think, industrial scale violence that is very hard to anticipate and stop. At the same time, I think the damage is even worse to the young women. Because for a lot of these young girls, they're having a lot of sex very early on, and that is doing real damage to them. Their ability to pair bond, their ability to find a meaningful relationship. And so you've got basically a collective unconscious that is screwed up. And the manifestation of that are these shootings, among other things. Our society, in other words, is completely unanchored. There's no real direction. That's the real story, I think, that's going on here. I don't think it's the feds and the rest of this sort of thing. It's that the authoritative structure of society, it's collapsed. And you're seeing that in the younger generations.
I think we'll see it manifest in a lot of different ways. Dave, did you have anything to add about the shooters?
Yeah, well, I mean, to build on what Cam said, I mean, you can look at the way that society treats God, the ultimate authority. They hold God in disdain. They hate God. Man, as the kind of the head of the household, as the Godhead figure of the family. You know, he's despised, he's spit on, they make fun of him in the movies and all of that. And then the young men get told all this stuff in the schools. But, you know, there's something about these shootings, though, bad as they are, obviously we condemn, blah, blah, blah. But there have been, 3 or 4, like very recently. We had the Trump shooter, Crooks. We had Mangione. Mm-hmm. And now we've got this Natalie Rupno figure. And it's interesting to note that the two men, Crooks and Mangione, they both punched up. They took a shot at Donald Trump. They took a shot at the CEO of the world's largest healthcare company.
And then she killed kids.
And then the woman goes into a school and shoots defenseless little children. Mm-hmm. And you know what makes it worse is the fact that like women all over this country do this every fucking day when they commit abortions.
That's true too.
As a kind of contraceptive, murdering indiscriminately.
Yep. And I haven't. How long were you like that?
It's fucking women, man.
Was he like that the whole segment? I felt his like hot Italian breath on me. It's so gross.
I want to say something real quick before I forget. Is that when you look into the you were just saying about God, one thing I've noticed is if you want to get in touch with what the young people are, like how their culture is shifting, you get on TikTok and look at it. Like young guys are moving, and this is one thing that young girls are not doing. Young guys are going back to God. I was looking at something. There's this thing called the TikTok shop. Have you heard of it?
No.
Where you can like buy things on TikTok, and it's kind of like its own little economy, right? Like when they talk about banning TikTok, they're talking about getting rid of hundreds of thousands of small businesses, people that are making a living on the TikTok platform right now. And there's this brand that's one of the most popular brands on the TikTok shop right now, and it's a Christian brand. And 90+% of their customers are young men. It's like a gym brand, and it's almost more popular than Gymshark. And these like Christian brands are going crazy right now. In fact, my son, without me telling him to, because I don't want to force this stuff on the kids so that they rebel and then, they don't want to do it.
Right.
My son is reading the Bible every single night before he goes to bed. I never told him to. He asked for a Bible. I gave him a Bible. He's reading the Bible every single night. And I said, what made you get interested in God? What made you get interested in Christianity and so forth? And he said, TikTok. He said, Instagram. He said, the Reels. He said, because all of the, like some of the baseball people that he follows, they're always talking about God and reading Bible verses, these young guys. And so it's a big trend right now with young men. They're searching for something to fill that void, to fill the emptiness, the loneliness that they're feeling, and they can't find it through men's groups like we were talking about last episode. They can't fulfill that with anything but a higher power, but God. It's the only thing that's doing it for them. And so you see this shift happening. And you were talking about how they hate God, the left hates God, the media, these people that are the culture shapers, or once were the culture shapers through the media, through newspaper, through things like this, through the institutions. Now the trust in these things have collapsed, and it's not working anymore with the rise of the internet. Those people, if you look at the thing that I sent you on Telegram, Operation Shylock, right? And now that the holidays are upon us, I think this is an important thing to touch on before we move on to the next segment. Operation Shylock was basically about turning Christmas into a mockery, turning Easter into a mockery, turning all of the Christian holidays into a mockery, right? Making Easter about the Easter Bunny, making Christmas about Santa Claus and Coca-Cola and Christmas presents, making all of these very important Christian holidays about something other than what it's supposed to be.
Pray tell, were Gentiles responsible for this?
They were not, for the most part. If you look at Operation Shylock and you look into it, I posted about this on Telegram. There's a bunch of screenshots. It's going to be hard to find from the actual article, but go ahead, Dave. It looks like you.
Well, I mean, I could read a little bit. It's so interesting, So the book Operation Shylock was written by Philip Roth. Philip Roth is also the author who wrote it wasn't Man in the High Castle. What was it? It was the book where like Charles Lindbergh becomes president and America becomes like a total Nazi dictatorship.
Well, that was Man in the High Castle, but is there another one?
Well, then it must have been that one because Philip Roth wrote like a whole fever dream about it because he grew up hearing.
So he was responsible for this.
So anyway, yeah.
Yeah. If you look into Operation Shylock, I've made some posts about it.
Yeah, it's going on about Nazis, the Holocaust, the King David Hotel. What does this have to do with Christmas?
Well, there's some screenshots in my post that I sent you that talk about this, but yeah. So I mean, like this is the plan that they've here we go. How Irving Berlin decried the major Christian festivals by composing Easter parade and White Christmas. Like all the Christmas songs were
written. Yep.
Yeah, were written by So it's something to note. Like they have tried to bury the body for a long time, and the earth that was over the body, that was hiding the body, is beginning to erode.
Well, of course, and that's why we're seeing a widespread reversal of these things, because in their hubris, as always, they've gone too far. Yep. This would be a great transition to the Candace Owens segment.
Okay.
Did you want to say something?
I wanted to read this quote.
Go ahead. Read the quote.
I wanted to read this quote. Okay. So this is from the New York Times. The radio was playing Easter Parade, and I thought, but this is Jewish genius on par with the Ten Commandments. God gave Moses the Ten Commandments. Then he gave to Irving Berlin Easter Parade with White Christmas, the two holidays that celebrate the divinity of Christ, the divinity that is at the very heart of the Jewish rejection of Christianity. And what does Irving Berlin brilliantly do? He dechrists them both. Easter he turns into a fashion show, and Christmas into a holiday about snow. Gone is the gore and the murder of Christ, down with the crucifix and up with the bonnet. He turns their religion into schlock, but nicely, so nicely that the Goyim don't even know what hit them. They love it. Everybody loves it. The Jews especially. Jews loathe Jesus.
There you go.
What?
So this is something I've been talking about on my show for years now, is Operation Shylock. Schlock, right? This is the American dream. The image that you have in your head of the American dream was also invented by Hollywood. So they
Hollywoodism.
Hollywoodism. That's a great documentary you can find on Rumble, I think. Still, they took it off of YouTube. But so this is what's, and now people are beginning to return. With the internet, like we talked about in a couple of segments ago, we can use the internet, we can use technology to our advantage to fight back against these people that have shaped our culture in a certain way intentionally for decades and decades and decades. People are beginning to seek Christ. People are beginning to seek truth. And as Cameron always talks about on his YouTube show, you know, they and like you just said, they went too far. They overplayed their hand, and
well,
we're going to win.
They will lose every single time, because as you're seeing from the shooters, as you're seeing from people that are returning to Christ, there is a void in the human spirit that can only be filled with a higher power. And when you don't feel that void, and everybody has gone through the struggle where they try to fill this void with hedonism, with monetary gain, even with work, even with exercise, healthy things. Sometimes you cannot fill this void with anything but God, and we're seeing this just pop up in all sorts of ways. I mean, I think that theme can probably be applied to every single thing that we talk about. I did want to talk about this Candace Owens thing. I understand that.
Speaking of anti-Semitism.
Yes. She has been given the Anti-Semite of the Year award by Stop Anti-Semitism, who have banned me on Twitter. They blocked me on Twitter.
They blocked you?
They blocked me, yeah.
Wow.
That was pretty proud.
Now
yeah.
there's an award.
Yeah.
That's good.
Because I don't even remember why. I'm a little less polished on Twitter than I am.
They nominated me for Anti-Semite of the Week in 2021.
Oh, okay.
Oh, really?
Nice.
Congratulations.
Congratulations. Well done.
I think I won.
I believe it.
Of the week. I lost the month and the year.
Who was a bigger anti-Semite than you?
I think it was E. Michael Jones.
Oh, okay. Fair enough.
That won.
Yeah.
I could be wrong about that. But
I am getting a lot of pushback from the dissident right. They're like, we've been saying this stuff for decades. We've been saying this for years and years, especially after the USS Liberty video that she put out. And I understand where everyone's coming from. We touched on this briefly last week. Do you guys believe, let's start with Cameron. Do you believe that that Candace Owens is a net positive to the conversation, although she's repeating decade-old talking points that we have covered extensively in our own programs that are being well received by a mainstream audience because she is a hot, black, rich woman? Do you still think it's a net positive?
I would quibble with the hot.
Just saying.
Adjective,
Oh, she's
but
beautiful.
By a lot.
Hey.
Come on. She's very pretty. She's got a symmetrical face. She's got nice skin. Just, come on, guys.
One man's
I
meat
don't
is
know.
another man's poison.
True.
Look, I think it's a net positive that anything that's consistent with the awakening, the re-spiritualization of the population is, I mean, she's moving things in the right direction. I certainly understand where these critics are coming from, right? She's not saying anything new. She doesn't have a unique perspective. She really doesn't. It took courage to say what she did, but she is not the leader of the right in any meaningful sense. That being said, whatever it takes to mainstream these ideas is a net positive, and I think we should interpret it as such. That being said, to allay the concerns of other folks out there about Candace getting credit and so forth, this is just the beginning, folks. This is the appetizer, maybe. This is the sniff before the appetizer. So I guess what I'm saying is she's sort of just barely opening the door. The door's going to get unhinged shortly. That's where we're headed.
Definitely. And I think she's going to radicalize a lot of people that are still mainstream conservatives, libertarians. I think that people are going to be on this libertarian to fascist pipeline, and there's probably not much they can do about it.
Yeah. I mean, she has a huge audience.
Huge audience.
Huge audience. So.
I don't know why anybody would be upset. I remember, I can remember seeing an article. It was like a parody article about like a bunch of white supremacists that got upset when Kanye West wore the White Lives Matter shirt. And it's like, why would you care? Like,
Yeah.
he's promoting a good thing. Let him. Like,
Well, you got a lot of people that purity spiral, and they're like, "Oh, Candace Owens is a blah, blah, blah," whatever.
No,
But
I understand because it's
she's got a
damaging.
huge audience, and she's
It's
like,
damaging to our ego. We've been saying this stuff for how long? How
But you
long?
need to say it over. Look at what happens in the media, right?
Yeah.
They say it over and over. Assad gassed his own people.
Right,
Assad bombed it. 600,000 Syrians dead because of Assad. Like over and over and over again. They tell the lie, they make it big, and then they keep repeating it over and over again. Where have we heard that?
"Who was
Yeah,
it that
really.
said
Who
if
was it that said that?
Who was it that said if 10% of the population believes a certain thing, that eventually it becomes like 100% of the population?" I don't know if that's like how true that is, but the fact that she has such a big audience and she's saying the things that she does, not only does it educate other people that have never heard these things, but it also helps us to normalize these narratives and these ideas that, we all got completely shit canned for and canceled for and
Right.
banned from everything for and everything like that. So, look at all the people that have come out recently. Dan Bilzerian, this guy's got 1 billion followers on Instagram. He's talking about the USS Liberty. Like, look at all these people that are saying these things that we said so many years ago.
And it legitimizes
I think it's
us,
a good
and it's
thing.
vindicating too.
Right. I think it's a good thing.
In that way, it's ego gratifying because I'm like, all right, well, I wasn't insane. USS Liberty was always what I started off when I was trying to red pill people
Yeah.
about certain issues.
Yeah.
And it was pretty effective because people would be like, wow, our government and Israel did that. And I think
covered it up.
And covered it up, yeah. And they didn't believe it typically,
Right.
but then they start to look into it on their own. And then, 6 months later, you're reading the Daily Stormer every day, which is basically what happened to me. But I am very happy. And I think that another positive development is that I'm seeing alternative media collate in such a way along the lines of whether or not you will discuss Jewish power. And this is definitely a development with the Tim Pool and Daily Wire thing, because I think that he's looking at the climate. He's like, I can't touch this. And, I'm kind of a douchebag also. And I need to continue making millions of dollars because I think he's grown accustomed to a certain lifestyle. And so he's seeing an opportunity to collate with these normies, with these conservative normies, without ever really having to talk about any of the important issues. And that's where the battle lines are being drawn right now. Are you going to talk about Israel? Are you going to talk about Jews? Or are you going to stay in these conservative normie lanes, talk about the Constitution, talk about voting? Is that really what we're going to do? And we're seeing people really definitively and aggressively choose sides. And I'm happy to see that.
Yeah, this is a very important point, okay? Let me just elaborate on this for a moment, because for so long I have dealt with people that have told me again and again, white people are different. We believe we're carrying the standard of multiracialism. We think it's moral. That has nothing to do with anything. This is about power. This is about who you think is going to win. Tim Pool's side believes that the Jewish domination of our government, of our foreign policy, is baked in. It's entrenched. It can't be changed. It's immovable. And by the way, the vast majority of your congressional body, of the political structure in this country, of institutions, Fortune 500 companies, whatever, they believe that, okay? However, in the distance, there is this image that's developing, this storm that's gathering, that represents an alternative power that's gaining in strength. Now, why do I say this? Well, number one, it's because the domination of our government is beginning to sunset. It has peaked, and now it's beginning to decline. That's the first piece. However, what do you think the Fortune 500 companies are going to do? And these academic institutions and the normies that live next door? What do you think they're going to do the minute, the instant, the second that the power structure begins to shift away from those people? They're going to sprint into our camp. They're not going to walk. They're not going to debate. They're not going to fight. They're going to completely switch sides. We're at the very beginning of this.
That's awesome. Yeah, my theory on this whole Tim Pool thing is, well said there, Cameron. That was awesome.
Yeah.
By
Maybe
the
want
way,
to stand up and cheer.
make sure to go follow him on YouTube. Neo-masculinity on YouTube.
Just one more thing on this, Vince. People are spiritual animals. But as such, we respond to metaphysical properties. We respond to the transcendent, to godliness, as Dave said earlier. That's on our side, okay? That doesn't rest on their side. That's number one. But secondly, we're animals. We respond to power dynamics. Nobody believes this shit except purple-headed freaks that go to Harvard and are over-socialized. But I say that because even though it's somewhat comical, people have fixated on the purple-headed freak and said, see, they're demented. How can we possibly? No, that's not the problem. It's the power structure. This is about power. And the people in power who are dominated by the Zionists are squandering it. They're destroying their position. They're extending themselves into wars that they should not fight. They've destroyed the economy. They've flooded our countries with POCs, and they have awakened the masses. This is why Candace Owens is doing what she's doing. She recognizes the shift, and she's trying to corner the market. If you want to criticize her for that, that's fine. You can. But ultimately, she's doing what she's doing because she senses the direction of change. Mm-hmm. It's in our favor, not in theirs.
Yes, Amen. Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that for those that are on the beginning of this journey of understanding Jewish power and the Jewish psyche, the heart of all of this, the reason that they continue to overplay their hands and then they are no longer favored in public opinion is, and that hubris that we were discussing earlier, is that they believe that in the end they will win and that they are God's chosen people. Can you imagine the power that would give you if you were sanctioned to behave immorally and you believed at the end of this earth you would be the only ones left standing? I mean, that is a potent drug, and we have to think about this as a spiritual battle, and that's what people are not understanding. I get questions all the time like, why are you so obsessed with this? Why are you so obsessed with this? I'm like, because when you break down every single issue, it's what matters. This is a spiritual battle for the heart of the Western world, and we have to deal with these issues if anybody wants to do anything important in their jobs or lives.
Yeah, and these people, remember, they deal in the tangible. They deal in the quantifiable. What do I mean by that, okay? For them, it's a material structure. It's all about money, man. It's all about, hey, I bribed this person. I spend this amount of money, right? Again, you'll hear a lot of economists that will tell you that ultimately it's all made up. No, it's not. There's this substance called humanity, which is a metaphysical being. And that metaphysical being spontaneously reorganizes itself based on higher authority that cannot be controlled, that is intangible, and that is far more powerful than anything that's empirical, measurable, bribable, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That's ultimately why there is reversion to the mean.
Right. And we should exploit that property in ourselves and in the Jewish community, because I think that they're underestimating that we do have this desire for God, for spirituality, for truth, and for righteousness, and they seem to not understand that about Gentiles.
So because it's not in themselves,
right?
And again, this is why I said what I did in the last episode about destabilizing Syria. Right? It sounds great. You create all this chaos. It's the same principle. I'm advancing propaganda in the Western world. I'm poisoning these people with subversive ideas because ultimately that's going to accomplish my objective. But it doesn't do that. It accomplishes the opposite thing because of what you said. It's the void that must be filled. This is what Vince said earlier. People need that spiritual orientation. And if you deprive them of it, they will seek it out. And ultimately, that power will overwhelm the opposition.
You know what's interesting about COVID is, and now as you said that, is when during COVID, when we were all like locked down, when I was still living in California and people were locked down in their houses, what we did as neighbors, people that we never even talked to before, people that would just drive by you and not even look at you as they went to work, started hanging out with each other. As they were deprived of that relationship with people, of that human connection, they sought that human connection more than ever before. And so after that, we became like best friends with like 12 of our neighbors. We used to have parties outside, out front. We became really good friends, really well connected with a lot of our neighbors because we were deprived of that human connection. And so as humans, we sought that human connection. So it's very interesting.
But isn't that what we're all doing right now spiritually? Like with this show,
For sure.
we have met like-minded individuals that we feel like will empower our spiritual position. That's what we do at church. That's what we do in the community in North Idaho. I mean, that's what this entire thing is about. And Cameron's right. Back to what he said, this will make us stronger and it will help us ready ourselves against whatever Jews and the government have coming our way.
But you repeat yourself.
I know. Yeah. Yeah, really.
I do want to say something about the Tim Pool thing, because Brett Cooper, actually, I got an email like months ago. Someone that was a whistleblower within the Daily Wire that was emailing me and saying like, hey, I have this person here that works for the Daily Wire as well, and they want to talk about how Brett Cooper is going to be leaving the Daily Wire.
No way.
And yes, yeah. And I was like, well, can you get me an interview with them? And they're like, well, we'll see I'll see what I can do. It turned into nothing. Well, this happened recently. Brett Cooper left the Daily Wire, and we saw all of these rumors about how Tim Pool was going to sell to the Daily Wire. And as these rumors are swirling on Twitter, Tim Pool tweets out this poll on his Twitter account. And he tweets out, Israel or Palestine. Did you see this?
Yeah.
Right? And I guess somehow, I don't know how, because these polls usually get just completely destroyed by people on Twitter. But Israel won by a lot.
70-30, I think.
And then he quote tweeted it, and he was like, wow, or something like that, right? He said something like, wow, or look what we have here, or whatever. And now we're seeing this article from, these articles from these news sources talking about how Tim Pool is selling the Daily. Now, here's my question, right? We heard recently about how the Timcast lost a shit ton of money after this whole Russia thing happened, where they were getting money from hundreds of thousands of dollars, Tenet Media, and they were like part of that. They had a lot of employees. They started firing their employees. This happened right after I went out there. So a lot of people don't know this, but Tim Pool, I was going to be on Timcast IRL. Actually, Cassandra Fairbanks, very good person, very good friend. She set this up for me, and my travel was paid for, my hotel was paid for. I get flown out to Washington, D.C., have to drive, take an Uber. They had a driver pick me up from Washington, D.C., driving me to West Virginia, put me up in a hotel, and now the driver, I think, is gone. Cassandra Fairbanks
She's gone.
is no longer working for Timcast. Cassandra got fired right after I got invited onto Tim's show, and he canceled on me the day of. He cancels on me the day of. My theory, and I think I'm right about this, is that he didn't know that Cassandra set me up to be a guest on Timcast. And once he found out,
He was pissed.
because not only did he say he wasn't going to be there, but no one was going to be there. Because usually they have multiple hosts, but no one's there to have me on. Right? So I get canceled. I get sent back home. Cassandra gets fired like a couple of weeks later.
Right.
This whole thing happens with the Russian money, and now he's reportedly selling to Ben Shapiro. He's selling his operations to. So did he run out of money? What is actually happened? Now, he said that his mom was sick. This is the reason why. And he actually DM'd me himself, and he followed me on Twitter. Yeah, he DM'd me himself, and he said, listen, this is like real. My mom was had something going on. So I'm not bashing him, because I don't know. A lot of people have their theories, but all I know is I asked, are you going to reschedule? And I never got the reschedule. So,
Well, who has
hold
he
on.
had that is like you?
Nick. Yay.
But do you remember how he treated Nick?
Yep.
Yeah, he treated him horribly. That he was trying to tone police the whole time.
So here's the thing, right? Here's the story. If anybody wants to read the original story, it's on MediaRightNews.com. And this is the story that broke it. And frankly, I know both the person that wrote that story, the person that runs that website, and I also happen to know the whistleblower who called the story in. This happened, and from what I understand, the Daily Wire became a minority silent owner, or like some sort of silent partner with Timcast in October, and that they've been working out this transition since October. And
that predates Tenet Media falling apart.
It predates Tenet Media falling apart.
Right.
But so it's kind of sketchy, right? Because you've got this like foreign outfit that's backed by RT that's essentially laundering money and tricking, people into taking it. I mean, and we don't really know the full story yet there. We don't really know what Lauren Chen's motivation was. We don't know if...
I highly doubt she knew, but they did pick a certain group of people
yes, they did.
that would never talk about the Jews. Why?
Yeah.
Why did they do that?
Well...
They must have anticipated that the power was going to stay on the side of the normie conservative. Every one of those guys is exactly the same. Dave Rubin, Tim Pool, who else? Benny Johnson, Taylor, whatever the hell.
Taylor Lorenz.
No,
I'm sorry.
But yeah, no, you're right. I think we all know it right there. You've got PragerU, you've got Breitbart News. On their website, it says born in America, conceived in Israel. You've got the Daily Wire. You've got Jordan. You've got all these different people. Jordan Peterson Jordan Peterson and Ben Shapiro met with Bibi Netanyahu. They had this dinner. But yeah, I mean, like this is it is very very, very weird. I don't know if he ran out of money. He had no other option because like he started letting go of people before this rumor started swirling around. So I don't know what's going on there. But I mean, this is what they do, right? Any sort of alternative media that crops up that has a big audience, they try to oust them or they try to control them. They try to...
but Tim Pool has no problem being controlled. He has no problem being controlled. And he has such an audience, so much, they're making so much money. They have such a large audience per episode.
They were. I don't know how they're making money.
The Daily Wire, Daily Wire is $1 billion company.
No, I know the Daily Wire is, but how does Tim Pool make money?
Because people just throw
Super chats?
money at you. Oh yeah, I'm sure.
Is that the only thing that's running the entire? Do you guys know that they have 5 different studios?
That is unnecessary.
Okay, hold on a second.
Yeah.
Listen, all of our fans in Qatar, okay, you can send us, Qatar, whatever, you can send us money at thebacklash.net/donate. We take Bitcoin. It's anonymous. You can send us as much as you want, okay?
And if you're
make
watching
sure to
right
power
now,
chat.
powerchat.live/thebacklash because
we'll go through them at the end.
I have been demonetized for so long we don't get super chats. Actually, this might be a nice time for us to take a little bit of a break, read some power chats, and then we can get back on it. I don't want to destroy the momentum for the show, but I do want to.
I like
give
reading them
back
at the end, to be honest.
Do you want to wait?
Yeah, let's just wait till the end.
Okay, that's fine.
Oy vey.
Oy vey.
Oy gewalt.
Anyway, Cameron, do you have anything? Oh, you said you were in Thailand when COVID happened. Were you in Bangkok?
Is that a serious question?
Yeah, I'm serious.
It was in Bangkok and Chiang Mai.
Did you see any lady boys?
He wouldn't know if they were good lady boys.
Yeah, if I have any numbers in my Rolodex, I'll send it right over to you guys.
Perfect.
Just ask. Just say the word.
The bigger the bulge, the better. By the way, speaking of that, Brett Cooper, actual chick?
What?
Some people say there's some people on Twitter that are saying that she's.
We had a really serious discussion today, so I will indulge you. But before we went on, we had a very heated discussion about whether or not Brett Cooper is hot. I find her look refreshing and adorable, and I think she's very attractive.
She's got a huge nose.
But she doesn't have like.
Owens is gorgeous, so
Candace Owens is also very beautiful.
Yeah, I don't think we trust you. You see, everyone is handsome and everyone is beautiful.
I just find people attractive. Maybe that's it.
Isn't it weird that she kind of looks like Ben Shapiro's sister, though?
She does. Except Abby Shapiro's like way Jewier.
Well, yeah.
Well, yeah. Well, yeah.
Brett Cooper's not Jewish.
I hope not. Whoa.
But that picture, it's not really. But she does kind of look like her. Brett Cooper does kind of look like.
Wasn't she in Ender's Game?
Who? Abby Shapiro?
No, Brett Cooper.
She's an actress. I
She
don't
was
know.
an actress.
Those are
Really?
some
I didn't know that.
huge,
Milkers.
just enormous.
Milkers, yep. Those are those milkers.
Those
Look
are
at
just-
Cameron's licking his lips. Cameron, are we on a delay here? He's licking his lips. He's just thinking about the milk.
Ew, gross. Poor Abby.
Cameron likes white milk.
She is like a classical musician, and all everybody talks about is her being Ben Shapiro's sister and her having huge boobs. That sucks.
That milk will poison you. That
Ugh.
milk is as
Oh my
poisoned as the wells.
Get it together, everybody, except for Cameron, who, as usual, is behaving well.
Well,
Thank you
he's
so much.
staring at the screen, licking his lips. I don't know.
He's
I
just
can't see what you're.
Oh,
what
that's
you're-
right.
No,
Never
you're
mind.
supposed to play along with the bit, Cam. You gotta
No.
play along with the bit.
he's looking to see if Brett Cooper was an Ender's Game. I guarantee that's what he's doing.
He's googling Abby Shapiro nudes right now. he's
really happy we started this super serious show.
I know,
Yeah.
right?
She's an actress, right?
I didn't know. I don't know.
She
I
is an
have no
actress,
idea.
yeah. But I think she was
I
like a
didn't know
child
that.
star.
I thought she was in Ender's Game. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know.
Man, how am I even supposed to transition to the next segment? How am I supposed to do that now?
I've never watched a single show of Tim Pool. Never seen anything. He's there. I don't know what he says. I don't know anything.
I don't think you missed anything, Cam.
Oh, he's such a fart
He
sniffer.
wears a beanie. That's
Yeah.
what I know.
He's like bald, but not in the way that Vince is bald. He's
wears-
bald in like a sad way, you know?
He wears a beanie, except for the times
Where millennial Matt pulled it off.
when he doesn't. Hold on.
Oh, man. That's a classic.
Sound effect.
That's an alt-right classic.
That's funny.
Matt was doing the Lord's work that day.
He
That's
truly
back
was.
in the day of
That is-
the freaking.
that's some old stuff.
That was,
was
even
Charlottesville.
after the "He Will Not Divide Us," the Windu stuff, which
Oh, yeah.
most people coming around just recently don't even know about that. The Windu.
This goes back. This
Oh,
goes
yeah.
back a ways.
The Shia LaBeouf lore?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I think Matt, frankly,
Shia LaBeouf is now
He's
I think
Catholic.
Matt was. I think Matt was responsible for his conversion because it was after he got in a fight, and then he got arrested.
Right.
He hit rock bottom.
Yeah.
And then he came to Jesus Christ.
It's
man.
naturally.
And
It's what we were just talking
I
about.
think that wouldn't have happened without Matt. So God
Yeah.
bless him.
Wow, that's a deep
think
cut.
a lot of guys are doing
Millennial
that.
Matt converted Shia LaBeouf to Catholicism. Who would have thought?
I'm proud of my godson.
I think
Every
it's-
step in this conversation is making it more difficult to transition.
real topic.
What are we talking about next?
We're talking about France and Germany
The massive collapse
and the
of European
massive
government.
collapse of European
Cameron,
government.
take it away. You're our guy.
Can you give us a little rundown on what's happening in France and Germany? The parliamentary system is very confusing to Americans.
Yeah, there's a lot going on over there. But let me just try to simplify things a little bit. So in parliamentary systems, you can basically hold an election if there's enough of an opposition that casts doubt upon the authority of the leader in government. Okay. So that's why there's just more frequency of elections over there. In some sense, it's better than our system because it's more responsive. In other ways, it's not. But over the last, I would say 6 months, really since the summer, there was a big election in European Parliament. Basically, European states across the European Union voted for the right. Okay, what does the right mean? Basically, opposition to the globalist mainstream parties, basically. Okay, not right wing the way we are quite yet, but trending in that direction. They had a massive showing in the parliamentary elections. This caused a cascading effect, specifically in France and Germany. It was a big moment for French President Macron. He responded to the parliamentary elections, basically a massive victory for Le Pen. and the National Rally, who represents the right-wing party. They're not really that right-wing. We'll get into that in just a minute. But in any event, Macron basically called the bluff of the French voters and said, look, do you really want these people in government?
Right.
And the French voters said, yes, we do. So there's different rounds that they go through to elect. But basically what happened is that all the socialists in France got together and they said, look, we're not going to let the National Rally, again, who's strongly anti-immigrant, if you want to call it that. They basically believe in strong borders and deporting illegal immigrants, not giving them health care benefits, things of that nature. They basically said, we're not going to let these people in government. So they all banded up. And the result was you get this mess of a government that's a smorgasbord of a coalition, largely consisting of the Popular Front, which is the leftist bloc. And that itself consists of 3 or 4 different parties, most of whom are just outright socialist lunatics on the one hand. Then you've got the middle, which is what's left of Macron's government, which is basically the Renaissance party at this stage. There's some others in there, but it's really the Renaissance. And then Marine Le Pen's party, which is the National Rally on the right. The result of that is you've got a government of people who don't like each other and can only agree on one thing. They don't want to implement any austerity measures, any fiscal cuts of any merit whatsoever. So Macron's prime minister, so Macron basically is the president and he runs the country as a whole, but the Congress, if you want to call it that, the National Assembly in France is run by the prime minister. The prime minister represents Macron and his government. He was trying to implement a budget that was somewhat sane because they have to submit that to the European Union, which is another body that sits over top. The socialists on the left and the socialists on the right, again, National Rally and Popular Front, got together and they said, you know what? We don't want any fiscal austerity at all. So they voted a no confidence vote against Michel Barnier, who's the prime minister in National Assembly for Macron. So he's out of the job. And basically Macron's government has collapsed. In Germany, something very similar happened. You had a coalition government led by Olaf Scholz. He's the chancellor, but he basically represents a tiny party in another broader coalition. He never really had a popular mandate. But AfD, that's Alternative for Deutschland, they are the nationalist party in Germany, the only real right wing in Germany. They did very well in the European parliamentary elections. And so the majority, this 3-party bastardized coalition that's led by Scholz, has come under pressure in successive waves of elections. Finally came to a head this past week, another no confidence vote. So basically his government, which consists of 3 parties, the Greens, the Social Democrats, and I think it's called the Free Democrats, they are out. Their coalition has basically collapsed. So where does that leave Europe? Well, basically, they're in recession. The whole continent, the German economy is falling apart. We'll talk more about that in a minute. They all have immigration problems, and they're all stuck with coalition governments that can't get along. So the European Union as a project is cratering. That's where we stand today.
Yeah. Did you see the so here's my question is how long are these people going to be able to co-opt these parties, these movements, these leaders that are up front initially right-wing, nationalist, saying the things that we want them to say, pushing for the things that we want them to push for? How long are the powers that be, or whatever you want to call them, going to be able to infiltrate and corrupt those parties, those people? I mean, you look at Maloney, you look at the AfD. Like, how long before they're not even going to be able to do that anymore? Because that's the thing. I mean, that's what they do, right? If you have the rise of these groups, the rise of these parties, the rise of these people, the rise of these leaders. Donald Trump was one of them, where they're able to infiltrate, they're able to take control, and they're able to redirect. Like how?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Vince. Finish your question.
No,
please.
that's it. That's what.
Yeah, so here's a way to think about it for Americans, because it is confusing and countries are very different, right? France is different than Germany, is different than Italy, et cetera, et cetera. You got the thing called the European Union, then you have the Eurozone. They're not the same. Some countries are in both, some countries are not, okay? But the way to think about it is the European Union, which is this international body that sits on top. It has a parliament, it has a commission, it has a central bank. That is sort of like the two-party system in the United States. It is a permanent impediment to any rise of a nationalist government, okay? Meaning that the staffers, the policymakers, the research assistants, the bureaucracies that run Europe, they're all centered in this internationalist structure, and that feeds into the national governments, all right? So until you get rid of the European Union, nothing fundamentally will change. Like in the United States, until you have a third party, a third way, a new direction, and new alternative, nothing fundamentally will change. However, what is happening in Europe today is fundamentally important. It's the leading edge of what's coming into the United States as well. Just, I would say, 6 to 12 months down the road, is the fiscal collapse of the European Union. The French voluntarily saying, you know what, we're not going to adhere to EU regulations. We're not going to get our budgets under control. We're going to pay for this massive welfare state. To hell with the European Union, et cetera. That is basically causing a financial crisis. And you have to remember that Europe is already in an economic crisis. They have an immigration crisis. They've got a geopolitical mess on their border. If France succumbs to a financial crisis, that means that the European Union will basically fall apart. And the reason I say that is because Germany and the Bundesbank, that's the German National Bank, backstops the European Union. If France flouts any program of austerity, the Germans will pull the plug and say, you know what, we're not going to backstop you. We're not going to allow our collateral to backstop your financial recklessness. A version of this happened about 10 years ago with the pigs. Some of you vaguely remember that. You had Portugal, Italy, Ireland, Spain. All these countries were completely fiscally irresponsible. There was a combination of a bailout on the one hand and some austerity that was imposed on Greece and some other countries. They barely kept it together. This time, it's going to blow up the European Union. And the severity of this crisis is so great that it's going to spread to the United States as well. Basically, all these governments are bankrupt, and bond vigilantes, so these are folks that are going to take the other side of the trade against these governments. They're all dependent on financing, okay? It's like having bad credit. You have one credit card after another. They're at their limit. And so that's going to create a Western financial crisis that's going to hit the United States as well. We're very, very close to that. Once that happens, then you're going to see a total turnover of government. But we're not there yet. We're in the early stages of that.
Migration is helping to drive that for sure. One thing I was thinking about is the thing that happened in the 2015 migrant crisis in Germany, where they had, what was it, like 1,000 rapes on New Year's Eve in Cologne, Germany. Like that, something like that would never happen. Like even in Canada, I think didn't Trudeau tweet something out like a few months ago where he said, for right now, we're going to stop all immigration to let the economy catch up. I couldn't believe that he tweeted that. But the tide is changing, right? The window is shifting. As we talk about, the Overton window is shifting so much that something like that is like fine for him to tweet now. Every time someone mentions Macron, and I just sent you this on Telegram, Dave. Every time someone mentions Macron, I can't stop thinking about these images. If you want to pull this up, do you guys remember this image where he's like, right. He's with like these shirtless, these like wet, sweaty, shirtless blacks, these like black migrants. It's so freaking weird, this guy. So it's like this is look at this. This is a real picture.
He's giving the finger in the second picture.
Yeah, these are real pictures. These are the leaders that are going down. But anyway,
yes, they are.
Trudeau. Did you see the video of someone walking up to him and calling him a faggot?
Yes, this is clip number 2, Dave.
Oh, do you have that in here?
I do.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, play that. I'm glad you have that
Wait,
in there.
calling
That's
him
hilarious.
a faggot? No, I didn't.
Oh, you don't have that?
Oh, I have a video of him getting heckled by multiple Canadians.
No, there's this guy that walks up to him and wants to take a selfie with him, but he's actually video recording. And he says, "Look at this faggot," and then
Oh
Trudeau
no!
runs away.
How could I have anticipated and put that in the outline already? You thought I was like
Pull it
really
up,
good at my
Jamie.
job.
Calls Trudeau a faggot on Twitter search. You'll find it immediately. But yeah, no, I mean Cameron's like absolutely correct. I and his take every time that Cameron. Yeah, it's this one. Play this real quick. See?
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Hold on.
Look at this faggot. Look at this faggot.
Can you say that in Canada? I didn't even know you could say that in Canada. Anyway, every prediction that Cameron's made that is coming, he's been on my show multiple times. Every prediction that he's made sounded crazy to me, but then every prediction that he's made like turned out to be pretty much correct.
Okay, so Cam, what stocks am I buying at open tomorrow?
Yeah, really.
Please.
Oh yeah, the
I
stock
wouldn't
market.
I'm glad you mentioned that, Dave, because some of you probably noticed that the Fed came out so that there was a press conference held by Jerome Powell,
The FOMC meeting today.
FOMC meeting. Thanks, Dave. And basically, the markets took a bath because they haven't fixed inflation. And there's very real fears that interest rates are not just going to come down, which they won't. But, look, I've been to all these countries, okay? I've been to France. I've been to Germany, been all over Europe. I've met with a lot of these parties. That's in part why I know the things that I do. The situation in Europe is very bad. It's very, very, very bad. France in particular. And if you go to Paris, you basically think you've landed in North Africa or in Congo, depending on which part of Paris you go to. The situation is ungovernable, okay? Germany's not as bad. France is very bad. I would say France and the UK are even worse. But these governments have engineered a situation that is basically going to blow them up, right? They're completely out of money. They have no police, really, of any merit that are on the streets anymore. The armed forces are completely hollowed out. At the same time, they're openly debating sending peacekeeping forces to Ukraine, which is basically going to start a war with the Russians. The administrative state in these countries is falling apart. That's happening in Canada, too. Trudeau's finance minister just resigned. Why? Because the economy is collapsing.
Right.
So we're on the cusp here, guys, of something very big. I think it's going to be akin to the revolutions of 1848. You're going to see these governments fall like dominoes, except the end result's going to be very different. These governments are cratering fast. One other thing to note on this. Look, Trump is in the same position. He doesn't have a plan. Mm-hmm. He doesn't. He faces the same fiscal insolvency that the rest of the Europeans do. And I think he's going to make it worse by imposing these tariffs. If he doesn't deliver on his promises, as I said a few episodes ago, people are going to turn on him. Mm-hmm. And I think it's going to happen in the next 90 to 180 days. And that will be the final disillusionment, in my view. I wrote a Substack about this. I think I sent it to some of you guys. Once Trump goes down, then people will realize, hey, look, we got to get rid of this whole two-party system. We got to start fresh. That's what's coming.
Do you really believe that these world leaders were motivated by benevolence? I know Angela Merkel, in her biography, she said that in the early stages of the migrant crisis, that it reminded her of the Prague migration of the late 1980s. But I believe those were all Germans. They were white Germans, and that stuck with me because I realized that she has no racial consciousness if she's thinking that is the same thing as this totally disparate racial group or group of races coming to Germany, and she's thinking, oh, these situations are they're so very similar. I'm like I'm having a hard time wrapping my head around the idea that this is a manifestation of world leader incompetence and maybe misguided benevolence or guilt from World War II, and not some kind of really nefarious motivation.
Well,
Yeah.
I think it's a combination of three things, right? It is not solely incompetence. That's not the case. However, what I've tried to convey to folks, in part because of my experience with a lot of these governments, is the extent to which you've seen a real brain drain at that executive leadership of government. Okay, and I mean the party systems. I mean the sort of constitutional frameworks of these governments, the international institutions like the EU. They just don't work. Okay, in a very similar sense, the U.S. Constitution in America, I don't think really functions properly anymore. Okay, and there are various reasons for that we can discuss at another time. But that's the number one thing driving everything, is that the bureaucracies that run these countries, they're completely depleted of capacity. And the reason for that fundamentally is because these governments have been restaffed over the last 50 years. If you weren't woke, if you weren't a globalist, you're out.
Right, yeah.
It wasn't about competency, okay, or merit. That has nothing to do with getting ahead in government at all. And it hasn't for a long time. That's the first thing. The second piece is the guilt, all right? Absolutely. You go to Europe, the Germans lost the war. They were blamed for the war. The Europeans collectively feel a tremendous anxiety about nationalism because of the Second War. I was in Europe, this is probably in 2016, and I was talking to a Spaniard, and he said, you got to understand, in Europe, we think about war the way Americans think about sex, all right? It's just that taboo topic that people in Europe just are very uneasy and uncomfortable with, and by extension, nationalism. That's the second reason. The third reason is the subversion that you guys talk about. It is the Zionist influence in these countries, especially through the European Union and its tentacles. And you have to remember, just as there are nonprofits in the United States, like Media Matters, like the ADL, like the Southern Poverty Law Center, they have all those same things in Europe. And they absolutely have untoward influence over elections. So you add those three things up, and you're right where we are today. The issue is, and this is exactly where we are in the United States, the extreme position is increasingly the only position left.
Yes, of course.
But Cameron, it's not extreme. Our positions aren't extreme.
It's not extreme.
Our positions are normal, like the
We're
natural
returning
law.
to normal.
What everybody
That's
did
right.
for 6,000 years, however long, on this earth, where men and women get together, have lots of kids, and it continues.
Yeah, but what
It's
Cameron
only
means is they're
recently-
viewed as extreme.
Yeah. The Democrats
right.
of the
I just wanted to point out that although the views are branded as extreme, it's the furthest thing from
course,
it. We are
yeah.
the most normal people.
Oh, yeah.
The Democrats of the 60s would be considered like, a lot of them would be considered like super
Conservatives.
far right. I
Yeah.
showed you the video of Mayor Daley from back in the 60s saying shoot any looters or shoot any rioters on site, giving
Right.
the order. He was a Democrat.
Look at George.
Right.
Was it George Wallace?
Right. I mean, so many examples.
What I mean, you're right, Dave, 100%. Extreme is the language that they use. These are not extreme positions. It's a recentering based on national interest. But I guess what I mean is, if you go back to the 90s, some kind of a pathway to citizenship was probably viable. I would not have supported it, but it was viable. You could sort of defend that position. Today, we have to deport. We have to mass deport. We have no choice. There is no alternative, period. And there is no alternative across Europe either. There is no alternative to exiting the European Union, which all of the mainstream parties in France, Germany, Italy regard as extreme and therefore unacceptable. That unacceptable position is going to become the only position left. That's where we are.
And in Europe, they call it repatriation, right? They say
Remigration.
Remigration. That's what all their banners say. Remigration. I don't think it's going to happen here, unfortunately.
Oh, you're blackpilling now.
I'm kind of. I mean, you see Trump kind of backtrack on a lot of Homan said that we're only gonna target the very violent immigrants.
It's not going to happen with Trump.
No, but I'm just saying, like,
It can
I
still
don't think it's gonna.
happen, all right?
Well, and I saw Nick talk about this. I saw a clip of Nick talking about this the other day, where he said that up for like in the short term, it would be There'd be a lot of pain if there were like mass deportations, both economically and also, you have police going door to door, and you've got who knows how the media is going to. I mean, look at how the media was. Look at how the media was reacting when Trump was president, when he was just simply trying to put any law in place to prevent, what was happening at the border. Wait in Mexico policy. They were camped out on the freaking border. They had Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez going to the gate and crying, and now the border's worse. Their border's worse, and the media's nowhere to be found because they don't want the people to know how bad it actually is, and so they're covering it up. And just like with the tariffs, I think in the short term it would be bad, but in the long term it would be good for the country. Like, I don't think it's going to happen. Go ahead, Cameron.
Yeah, I was just going to say, look, on the immigration side, okay, Trump is not going to implement that kind of reform. Rebecca's exactly right. You have to remember, institutions can't reform themselves, okay? They tend to break, they collapse, and then they have to reorganize. That's what we're talking about. The same thing is happening in Europe. These governments cannot fix themselves, and the problems are so great in magnitude that it's just going to destroy them, okay? My point is that when they go down, and that's what you're beginning to see here, you're seeing these leaders just collapse, okay, because their governments are so fragile and incompetent. That's when you're going to see the necessity for a total 180-degree shift. How would something like that in the United States happen? If you have a financial crisis in the United States, the immigration problem becomes an economic problem, becomes a policing problem, because all of a sudden you have millions of people who depend on the government for health care, for education, for transportation, for rent, for heat. All of a sudden, they don't have those things anymore. And they're disproportionately not white, okay? So what's going to happen to the rule of law, which is already shaky in those areas, when you have a fiscal adjustment of that magnitude?
People are going to be pissed off.
And I quote, it's going to test social cohesion. And remember, as I've said before, we are at war with Mexico. Okay, whether we understand that or not, we're at war with the drug cartels who control large sections of this country and control the border. So this is the reality of the situation. Congress has been able to sort of sidestep it because the financial system's held up, because the economy's been strong. It's not anymore. So again, the extreme position is going to become the only thing that we can do.
Right.
We're very close to that. Very, very close to that.
Radical problems require radical solutions.
It's true. And I'm seeing average citizens be emboldened. Oh, we have a clip. Can we pull up clip 2 and watch about a minute of it?
Clip 2. Pull it up.
2. Let's watch this and then we can talk about it.
It's important that we understand and analyze this imminent resignation from Justin Trudeau because it's indicative of a zeitgeist, a spirit of the times that's propagating across the entire planet. Let's run clip number B. It says here, Kyle Becker reported, if you want to know why Justin Trudeau is on the verge of resigning as Canada's prime minister, this woman says it all in just 22 seconds.
You've sold us out to globalism.
Okay.
You are not working for Canada. You are working for your globalist partners. I wonder how much they're paying you to betray Canada. What do we do with traitors in Canada, Mr. Trudeau? We used to hang them. Hang them for treason. And you're doing that very same thing to us now.
And we've got...
That's who she's getting arrested.
Yeah, really.
They just arrest people for speaking out in Canada.
Here's my question. Why is she saying that? That Trudeau's been in power a long time, okay? Why is she saying that now? I'll tell you why. It's because Canada is falling apart.
Right.
The economy is unwinding there. They have mass immigration problems across that country. There's only, 30 million Canadians? I forget the exact number. You can look it up, Dave, but it's a small country, all right? It's been just inundated with mass migration. That's why you're starting to see pushback. That's why you're seeing these governments fall like dominoes, okay? Yeah. All of a sudden, the urgency has kicked into gear.
I think that was aptly put, that social cohesion is going to continue to be tested, and that's why we're seeing people speak out. The economic problems, of course, are going to be devastated all of us. But before we move on, Cameron, I think that what we all wonder in these situations of potential economic despair is how we can shield ourselves from some of these effects. So what do you think the average citizen, people that are watching this show, can do to prepare for the imminent economic backlash that we're going to experience?
Yeah, I think the first thing is get out of debt. Get out of debt to whatever degree you can, right? Pay off your credit cards. If you can pay down your mortgage, what have you, cut back in general. Don't spend as much as you normally do. A lot of people are moving back in with mom and dad. Mom and dad's moving in with their kids. You're going to start to see a lot more of that as we go into this. So number one, get out of debt. Number two is cut back. Adjust your standard of living down to prepare for this. The third thing is you definitely need to pay attention to how you bank. So you need to look at the banks that you use. You need to pay attention to where your money is located. Because when you get into these sort of depression cycles, all kinds of centralized systems become vulnerable. Banks become vulnerable. Financial institutions of all kinds become vulnerable. Credit unions, all right? Your money could get locked up. Now, I'm not trying to fearmonger here, but these are things that can happen very, very quickly. In the European Union, they're already beginning to happen. So get ahead of the problem. And finally, I would say this, have a plan. So if things do go haywire, where do you go? To whom do you correspond with, right? Is there a safe location that you can go to? Can you get out of the cities if you have to, right? If they become lawless. These are things that you need to start thinking through, and you need to evangelize that message with friends and family. So get out of debt, cut back, sort of shore up your standard of living. Don't buy that extra car. Don't get another credit card, etc. Be very shrewd in terms of where your money is. And 4, have a plan. Have a plan. Think things through, both in terms of crime and safety, but also food, supply chains, all those kinds of things. Just think them through. I don't think we're going into Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome, okay? I don't believe that that's how bad it's going to get. But have a plan and think it through. If you do that, that's half the battle.
Our economy is definitely propped up on pillars of sand right now. I don't know if you remember this, but I think a couple of years ago you were on my show and we were talking about China and the real estate developers going under. Have you guys ever heard of the Chinese ghost cities?
Yes.
Yes.
You guys heard of those?
Yes, I have.
They're pretty crazy. If you look up some of the pictures, they have entire
and there are
cities.
videos. There are people that urban explorers that have videos on YouTube.
Yeah, they've gone into. I wrote a whole article about this. They have whole cities of just completely vacant apartment buildings, like perfectly good apartment buildings, perfectly good cities, convention centers. And it's pretty crazy to look at. And I mean, that's basically what we have here, but just not exactly like that. But in terms of our economy, right? I mean, it's a ghost. It's a ghost. It looks good from the outside, but on the inside, it's crumbling very quickly. Mm-hmm. Yep. Anyway, do we want to go to
now, Cameron? Go ahead. I guess my question: you're asking people to get out of debt, but we're also saying that we're about to see a massive financial collapse. Wouldn't that be a moment where you could actually leverage that, go into more debt, and then hope that your bank defaults? Wouldn't
right. Also, the debt is worth
$10,000 out of the ATM at Chase.
Yeah, no, this is a good question, Dave, and I'm frequently asked this. Why, if the financial system didn't blow up anyway, why not just go to town and exploit that process? The reason is it's not going to go out of business overnight. You're going to be in a transitional period. All right. What do we know, however, when you go into a depression-like environment, access to money becomes very, very difficult. All of a sudden, your credit score becomes incredibly important. This is what's happening today for millennials in terms of getting cars, homes. The credit rating that you have becomes incredibly important. It's going to be the opposite of what it was 10 years ago, in which anybody could get access to credit at a low interest rate. That's going to vaporize. So in this transitional period, you definitely want your credit to be as good as it can be. The other thing is this: you're going to need cash to get through. Okay. I lived in Argentina for 5 months. Their economies collapsed. Guess what they use? They use pesos. They use cash. It's a cash-based system. And a lot of that's because the banks don't work. Again, access to credit is scarce. So pay down your debt, have some extra cash on hand, right? Typically speaking, when financial systems collapse, cash becomes king, all right? Especially so in the United States. And what we've seen over the last, I would say, 3 to 4 years is the value of the dollar has actually gone up relative to other currencies. Right now, it's still losing value because of inflation, but it is gaining in strength, especially if you have liquid cash. Because remember, during depressions, things actually fall in price, houses, cars, etc. So that's why you want to pay down your credit. That's why you want to have dollars. At the same time, and this is sort of what you're hinting at, Dave, yeah, we're going to have a new currency at some point. Maybe it'll be Bitcoin, maybe it'll be something else. But you want to sort of trend in that direction as well. It's just going to be a transitional period. I don't know how long it's going to last, but it's coming. It's coming. I think we're already in it.
Well, and there's something else that I wanted to touch on now that you mentioned that with currency. So a priest friend of mine, he was in Rhodesia during the civil war that happened there. And we were talking, and he talked about how the currency collapsed there and, went to total shit. But what was really interesting is what he said they used for currency. And it was primarily like penicillin, cigarettes, lighters, little nips, the like alcohol nips, things like that. Gold and silver, people didn't use. They could just murder you and take it.
Right.
Bullets are useful. You could trade those. They're divisible. You can use them to get more things. Alcohol is good because it takes people's mind off of the war that they're in. Cigarettes, these little luxuries that you don't normally have in that kind of a situation. And so that's what he told me they kind of went towards. They didn't go towards gold and silver. And that was, I thought kind of interesting.
One thing on this, because a lot of people don't really understand how the gold silver markets work. But if you buy gold, okay, what you can do is you can go to a precious metals dealer and you can exchange your gold for cash. That's ultimately what people tend to do in these environments that get out of control. An example of this, and this, again, is sort of encouraging in terms of how people sort of spontaneously reorganize. In the 1960s and 70s, Ireland had a banking crisis. Their banks just completely shut down, all right? The pubs became the credit system because the pubs had a lot of cash on hand. So the pubs are actually scaled up and issued out cash loans to people because the banks were shut down, right? So these are the kinds of things that could absolutely happen if the financial system begins to implode. And if you do have gold and silver, you can go to a precious metals dealer and exchange that for hard currency, which you can then use to buy groceries or whatever.
And of course, you can go to buy your gold and silver to Money Metals Exchange, one of the proud sponsors of the Backlash.
Wait,
that's
are they really?
moneymetals.com.
Are they really a sponsor?
We'll find out. We'll find out if they send a check in the mail.
Yeah, really.
This show is sponsored by...
Sponsored by... No, absolutely not. I have been talking with Tucker Carlson's people. They're sending me Alp. They're sending me his new nicotine
great.
All right,
pouch.
we'll change to Alp.
Alp.
It'll be good.
Where we can be bought. Before you start cutting back, before you start cutting back on your finances, super chat the show, powerchat.live
Cameron, what are you
/thebacklash
saying?
every
No.
episode.
Cash is
Send
king.
us
Cash is
Bitcoin.
king.
Cash is going to be fine. Everything's going to be fine. Just buy more MicroStrategy, buy more Bitcoin,
True.
and donate at thebacklash.net/donate.
Give us a few Bitcoin, change our lives, make us the biggest, most red-pilled podcast ever. Anyway, do we want to go to Super Chats? Or
We will.
Okay, go
I
ahead.
was going to... One last
Go
thing.
ahead, go ahead.
One last thing, and that
I need
is
to
the...
really use the bathroom.
Oh, really?
Go ahead, go ahead.
Why don't you go
Let's
on stream?
Let's go.
I think people would
On
wanna...
stream? Into a bottle?
Yeah.
Okay, absolutely not.
How much... Do you think we could get some Super Chats from that?
We
I think
don't.
we
We
can.
can't get super chats. We can only get power chats. We still can talk drones if you want to. So.
Oh, no,
But
we don't need it. We can
Cameron
save
mentioned
that.
it. Cameron mentioned it. But I did want to point out that there is a thesis that Bitcoin could be used as like an escape valve, a pressure release valve for inflation, where the inflation can go into Bitcoin and run up the numbers while not actually affecting our buying power. Also because of the death of the petrodollar and the treaty with Saudi Arabia, the idea that the United States could adopt Bitcoin as a strategic reserve and then force other banks that decide to hold Bitcoin that they need to also hold an equivalent amount of U.S. Treasuries as a way of increasing demand for the dollar. I mean, you said it, that although the dollar is losing value, it's still the strongest fiat currency that's out there. And so what I see happening with Howard Lutnick being involved with commerce and with the Trump team, I think that dollar hegemony is going to increase potentially, destroying the smaller, weaker fiat currencies throughout the world, replacing them with things like Tether, with like a digital dollar, and then after every other fiat currency has collapsed, then the U.S. dollar. But I think that we've got some time left.
You keep talking about Bitcoin. It's going to be Pepe.
Pepe
Yeah,
coin.
really.
It's going to be Pepe. No, I have this very esoteric coin, this like shit coin. It's called Imagine AI. And I've had it for I just forgot about it. I had 4,000 of them or something. It went up 179%. Or
Wow.
200%. It's like an AI coin. It's like
So
an
now
image.
you have 4 cents or something?
Yeah, I have $50.
Down from
That's
300.
the
when
extent
you
of
put
my
it in.
cryptocurrency. I have $50.
Vince, I thought you had Fart Coin. Weren't you a big
Is that a
investor?
coin?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Where can I buy that?
It's right next to Hawk Tua coin.
Yeah. Is that what she called it? I feel like she could have done better.
Don't ever shitcoin, friends.
No.
If you're watching this, don't shitcoin. You'll lose your money. You're going to get mad.
Or you'll get the
James,
biggest
you hear that?
gains ever.
No shit coins, James. I'm looking at you.
All right.
Now, I guess,
On to the super chats.
we can do power chats.
It's
Okay,
the
great.
funniest segment
So-
of the show. It's been the funniest segment of the show. Is the
Power
power
chats?
chats? Yeah.
Okay.
I've got to find the end of it.
Good talk, guys.
12/19.
Good talk.
Today's the 19th, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Piss jug for the win. Someone says in the chat. That's right.
No.
Should I have it read it? I can have it read it. Hold on a second. I could do this.
We should read them.
We can
Why
read
don't
them.
you just read it, brother?
I'll just read them. Bill Biz sent $25. Sounds like a win for Idaho with the State Board of Education rejecting DEI policies. Hope it's contagious to other states.
Yep.
Yes, we just last year, the head of the, whatever it is, the State Board of Education, Debbie Critchfield, who's a rhino, by the way. She's very corrupt, a rhino. Not good. But the popular sentiment is that DEI is bad. Everyone knows that. And she put out a statement basically saying that she encourages all the schools in the state of Idaho to stop doing DEI stuff.
Good.
So
You know,
that's
one
win.
thing that Cameron was saying about all of our leaders being these purple-headed freaks, these people that have been over-socialized. The problem is that, those people are fed into those positions from academia, which only allows, people like that to get in academia. It's really hard to get into college as a white person, and unless you pay for it, completely out of pocket. It's hard to get accepted into a lot of colleges as a white person. My daughter knows a lot of people that are putting all these different things into their applications. They're saying that they're different races. They're saying that they're
Smart,
this
yeah.
because they can't get approved for scholarships. They can't get approved for admission in general because they're just straight white people. So the reason why we have that in positions of power is because it's the only thing that's accepted into academia. And the only way to get into the elite, the only way to get into positions of power is through academia. Yeah. So we need people to still go to college. Don't buy into this whole, I'm not going to college. Go to
But
college.
you make up something
Right.
about your race.
Right. Try to go to college at least.
Mermaid Marie sent $10 and said, love the show, guys. Rebecca, you look gorgeous as always. Just found out I'm pregnant with my 5th child.
Yay!
Congratulations.
That's so
amazing.
great. Good for you.
I've got
Why
my,
is she glazing Rebecca? Why is what's going on here?
Yeah, usually it's the guys that do that. But
Right. Unless it's a guy that's pregnant.
named
Oh.
Marie, Mermaid Marie.
Mermaid Marie.
Yeah. Addicted to Drums sent $25 and said, like the show.
Hey, I know him from my old podcast. Hey.
Awesome.
Hey.
Big
Thank you
shout
so
out.
much for coming over here.
Thank you. Big Mad Lad sent $5. Great show, guys. Blonde is looking great.
What is this shit?
Totally.
What about me?
Yeah. It's okay.
What about this the jawline? Anyone notice that? Anyone notice the headset
like-
indentation? Go ahead, Cam.
Vince
Yeah,
looks
doesn't that
like Vince looks like Peter Weller from RoboCop.
I am RoboCop. Some say
does,
that. Yep.
man. I'm telling you.
I've heard that. I've heard Mr. Clean. I've heard it all.
Somebody named What I Don't Understand sent $5 saying, every time I see a slightly right or wing group get political relevance, they always go big tent, accept everyone, get betrayed, and then disappear.
They get infiltrated.
John
yeah,
Mark
co-opted.
and Kurt Doolittle, the Proud Boys,
Oh my
Steve
gosh.
Bannon, Farage. How is Catholicism going to change that?
Well, first of all, on the third position, or what was the Kurt Doolittle? What were they? Not the third position. They were.
You're right. What was that? I just remember the guy
Remember
with
when
the
he pissed
helmet.
his pants? John Mark. Yeah.
John Mark.
Remember when? No, it was Doolittle who pissed his pants.
Yes.
Remember that?
Yes, I
Can
do.
you pull up that? Do you have that clip on Twitter? Just go on Twitter and just be like, Doolittle pissed his
What?
pants. Yeah. Pull it up. It's hilarious.
Yeah, it is.
He got surrounded by blacks. There you go.
Oh man.
He got surrounded by blacks and pissed his pants because he was surrounded by blacks.
Were they threatening him, or were they just?
They were just like, "Oh, what about why are you a racist, bro? Why you?" And he was like, "Well, there's differences in races. Blacks have bigger dicks." And then he pissed his pants immediately, subsequently, after he complimented their penis size.
Oh God.
And that was the end of that. That was the end.
I don't even remember what the name of his movement was called.
It was like, I don't even know.
It was like some
it was a
proprietarianism.
proprietarianism,
Yes.
right? And so every time I would go live, and this was back in the D Live days, right? Because they banned me from YouTube, but go to D Live was like popping off. At the time, Nick was on D Live. Every time I would get a super chat about proprietarianism, you got to follow these guys. You got to have these guys on your show. And then this happens, and I'm like, I'm glad I
Yeah.
never had them on my
This is
fucking
what would
show.
happen if you peed in a bottle on this show.
I wouldn't hit
We
my
would
pants.
never. We would. we would never be
Sometimes
known
it
for
comes out.
anything
Well,
else.
maybe I would, because sometimes it comes out in multiple streams. The guys know. When you wake up in the morning.
Are you saying you have a weak stream? I don't want to know
No,
this
when
about you.
every
you get
guy
your
knows
prostate
this. When you
checked.
wake up in the morning, sometimes it comes out in multiple streams. You can never predict.
You ever write two names at once at the same time?
I have not. Have you ever played crossing streams with the Cameron has, being in the Navy?
Oh yeah, of course.
The stream.
I won.
He's pleading the fifth again.
Terrible.
I plead the fifth.
Oh, no, that was...
Oh, wait.
Show.
Go ahead. Say it again, Cameron.
It's a family show, right?
It's a family show.
Yes.
Speaking of pleading the fifth, did you see that clip of Fuentes when he was getting interrogated by the cops?
Yes. That was
Is there
smart.
any way you can pull that up,
Send it
Jamie?
to me. Send it to me on Telegram.
Okay, I'll send
While
it to
we
you.
read the big
Go
super
ahead.
chat from Reinhardt.
Yo!
Fine.
$50. Thank you very much. I am both glad Nick is okay and happy for any accelerating event. These people should be careful what they wish for. Provoking our most radical members is the opposite of what they want.
Yes.
Bingo.
As
Absolutely
always,
correct.
Reinhardt
Yes.
is spot on. They think that it's what they want, but I don't, like the theme of this show and the last show has been, I don't think that they realize the potential outcomes of the chaos that they're sowing. It's just so destructive.
Oh, yeah.
And it, of course, is going to be levied against them.
Well, and that's again why I lean on the side that this wasn't just random, that this was in fact somehow controlled, that this kid was psychologically manipulated, because killing Nick Fuentes would radicalize overnight at least, I mean, how many hundreds of thousands of kids?
Maybe millions.
Maybe millions.
The entire Chicago police force.
Yeah, really.
Maybe he'll red pill them.
But I mean, it would be significant. It would not be good. It would create a very bad situation and lots of chaos. And I think that's what they wanted. That's why I lean towards this idea of like a Palantir bro, psyoping some guy in a weird echo chamber. I don't know. What I don't understand is, again, sent $5. The only thing Catholicism can do that really helps is set a baseline point of entry if the majority of the people attending have Wignat beliefs and use the church tithe to do good work and community building. Need a high trust society first, though. I would disagree that you need a high trust society first. The whole point of church is it is its own society. It is its own society. As a matter of fact, in canon law, the Catholic Church is described as a perfect society, meaning it has its own governors coming from within it. It's self-regulating, it's self-governing, it has its own internal hierarchy, meaning it's a perfect society. Not that it's perfect in everything that it does. So when you go to church, I mean, I don't particularly fear getting pickpocketed in a pew.
Can you imagine?
I don't know many people that would at any church. So the whole point of going to church is you're already around people that are like-minded that you should be able to have like a conversation with. And that's what you don't have in these big cities. You are not, when you are in a big city and you're geographically associated with other people, not by your choosing, that are of different races and different religious backgrounds and educational backgrounds, that's where the lack of social cohesion comes in. And that's why when you look at churches, they are the most segregated place in the world on Sunday mornings. Almost every single church is over 95% of one particular ethnicity. So a lot of these issues go out the window. I mean, frankly, I think that white nationalism is what happens when people lose Christianity, when they lose the faith, when they go away from the moral law as our ancestors practiced it for 2,000 years. I think that's where you start getting into problems, and then people start looking for solutions that is anything other than Jesus.
I think you don't think that women are kind of like mindful of their
Women are a
purses when they go up. No, well, women are a problem for sure. But I think women are they have to be probably mindful of where their purses as they go up to receive the host, though, right? I think in a lot of churches.
I've never thought about it. I always
You've
use my
never
purse.
thought about
Women
it?
bring their purses into church?
I think a lot of them do.
I
We
do.
leave our cell phones in our car. I shouldn't say that.
Well,
out
the
loud.
thing is like, okay, so
We leave our cell phones in the car unlocked. That's what
Yeah,
I'm
really.
talking
when you get a person that comes over from a third world country and you talk to them, a lot of them say, "Well, I can't believe the gas stations just leave all that food and all that product right outside on display. You know, back in my country, they would fucking steal it." It's like, yeah, now we're starting to have to lock shit up.
Yeah, the
Like
deodorant.
the deodorant for instance in black neighborhoods. What is with the why do they steal the deodorant? It's so weird.
Have you seen the videos where they go around with Tide and they start pouring
Yes.
Tide?
Yeah. They're always complaining too. They're always like, why is the black hair care products the ones that are locked up? It's because you're the ones who steal the hair care products. And it's like that's why they're locked up. It's like yeah, so like and it used to be the case where you can fill up your car with gas without having to pay and then pay afterwards.
Right.
Remember when I was
Yeah,
growing
I
up?
remember that, yeah.
And now you can't do that. Now you can't even have deodorant on the shelves without like or hair care product. You
The
can't have
testing
Crisco.
of social cohesion.
Can you make drugs
Cameron
out of
said.
it or something that we don't know about?
I think it's just that that's the thing that my uncle says they don't wash their feet. I don't know. I don't know what it is with the with the deodorant. I don't know. Anyway, what were we saying? Oh, I sent you that clip on Telegram if you want to play that. It's just a really quick, like 10-second clip. I think Anthony Cumia, he said,
Okay, with her.
10-340 at 1446.
No comment on that. No comment. Is pepper spray or anything? No comment.
No comment.
it's a very important thing, right?
Yeah,
Just
lawyer,
never
lawyer,
right?
lawyer,
No
yep.
comment. I plead the fifth. Cameron says it all the time when I ask him about his gay sexcapades in the Navy. He says lawyer.
Yeah.
He says no comment.
Have you been to
And
Bangkok? Lawyer.
Lawyer, right? Have you seen Lady Boys? Lawyer. I'm trying to get him to laugh. It's really hard to get Cameron to laugh.
He's the Rock. No, I think that that Nick Fuentes, the arrest video, everybody that watches this, it's 20 minutes. Go watch that video. Because when you see Nick and you see what's going on with him and the way that the police are talking with him, they're very nice. And they almost make it so that it's like, oh, what do you mean you don't want to talk to me? I'm
Right.
your friend. I'm here to help you. I just want your side
That's
of the
how
story.
they do. You can't trust
That's
the
how they do it. And that's how they get you to talk. And Nick stuck by his guns. And you can see he was fighting it at because Nick likes to talk. But he was fighting it at every moment to shut up and say, I'll give me your card, I'll call my lawyer, etc.
Right. Yep.
Anyway, sorry about that rant. Based Dollar with a big super chat.
Thank you.
Great show. I think Candace talking about the Liberty is good. Even if she's grifting, she has opened the door for many to walk through.
I agree.
Very true.
I love
agree.
Base Dollar. This guy, I have so many late night
if you
conversations.
Thank you so
If you
much.
like Base Dollar, you're going to love him even more because he sent another super chat.
Whoa!
Oh, hold on.
I heard you have a big what?
Who said that?
No.
Wait, go back.
Hold on. What's going on? They're sending new super chats. I hit the wrong
Oh,
one.
it's okay.
Base Dollar sent another $100 and said, do you think the AFD can win power? I think it's possible. As things get worse, the Germans will get more reactive.
I'll let
Oh, I
Cameron
think they
answer
can.
that, but let me just give a shout out to Base Dollar. This guy, I've known him for a long time, and I have so many late night conversations on Telegram. He stays up really late. Like I used to stay up really late. Sometimes I just fall asleep, but the dude is the best. And I try to reach out to a lot of these younger guys all the time and just have like side, a lot of people try to avoid them, right? A lot of like content creators or whatever, they avoid, they don't answer the emails. They don't answer the Telegram messages. I answer them because you never know what these young people are going through. Mm-hmm. And a Base Dollar I've known for a long time, one of the nicest, most generous, kindest like dudes, and great guy. Great. Yeah, I've known him for a while. So big shout out to him.
We appreciate it.
Go ahead, Cameron. What's the answer to that question?
Yeah, so AFD is Alternative for Deutschland, for those who do not know. AFD is a very strong party. They're very well organized. They have been absolutely pilloried in the press in Germany for years, okay, as has anybody that is even moderately right, okay? But they are surging. And I think what is basically happening is that the Christian Democrats, that was Merkel's party, and there's two versions of them. There's the Christian Democrats in Bavaria, which is in the south, and then the Christian Democrats, which tend to be in West Germany. They are conservatives, but like the Republican Party, they're being dragged to the right. And unfortunately for them, I suppose, they have made the same mistakes the Republicans have. They virtue signal, and then they get into power, and they do nothing. That is how AFD is going to come to power. Again, the extreme position, or as Dave says, the normal, the right position, is the only position that's going to be left shortly, and AFD is going to occupy that. However, one other thing I should say on this is that they will not permit, under normal circumstances, these right-wing parties in Europe to come to power. I think in a similar sense, they assimilated Donald Trump, right? They were never going to permit somebody that was actually Trumpian to get in there,
right? Which
is going to seal their demise, right? It's going to make sure that they implement these self-destructive policies until they self-destruct. That's when AFD's time to shine will be. That's when we'll get a new party in the United States. That's when the European Union will collapse. How far are we away from that? I think we're months away from that. I think it's that soon.
I agree with everything you just said.
Based.
I had to go bad. Like it was starting to hurt. So
that was
sorry.
That was a one streamer, Vince.
I had to walk away. I had to use the bathroom so
one
bad.
Streamer.
And nobody would have known if you hadn't said anything. Ed Powell sent $10. The anti-European NGOs Cam talks about are funded directly or indirectly by the U.S. deep state. We need to focus on defunding the deep state.
Hey, Ed, good to see you. I do have a question about this. Ed's a friend of mine. The deep state, when I hear people talk about the deep state, I'm like, is this a meaningless, the U.S. deep state? Is this a meaningless term because it's inherently an international deep state? How could you even be a U.S. deep state in the absence of Israeli influence? That's for Cameron.
Yeah, I just don't like the term because it implies that there are these shadowy groups. Everybody knows who George Soros is.
Right.
Everybody knows bankers are financing a lot of these wars. Everybody knows about big pharma, right? The source of the negative influence, it's established. We know who it is. They've just completely corrupted the entire state, right? The apparatus of government. It's ruined. And in addition to that, it doesn't work very well. So it's just those two things.
I like what you say about the state, how you just call it the state.
It's the state. It's the state, man. You know, that's what it is.
Yeah, I actually, and I knew this was going to happen. I gave a speech after J6 after that. And it was kind of ballsy for me to do this. I was actually sort of like, I was very concerned about doing this, but I gave a speech at ASU right after J6. It was like a couple of weeks after like the J6 and all the fallout. And I talked about how under the Biden administration, like if you thought the Barack Obama administration was bad in terms of coming after dissidents, in terms of coming after their enemies, the Biden administration is going to be much worse because Biden, and I said this before he was even inaugurated, I said Biden is completely clueless. Like he has no idea what's going on. He's not running anything. My uncle, the boomers, they were like, I hate Biden. I'm gonna punch that guy in the face. I fucking hate that guy. Because they just get pissed off watching Fox News all day long. Biden has no idea what's going on. It is all of these factions with different interests and different goals that are running the state that are doing these things. And so the state just becomes more more of a threat to us because they're able to just do whatever the fuck they want to do. Basically, is what it comes down to.
Here's the way to look at it, right? So let's just consider the FBI as an example. If you subscribe to the deep state, your view is basically that there are some bad apples that have outsized power at the FBI, but that's not accurate. The FBI is a broken institution. That's the truth. It just doesn't work anymore on the one hand. And on the other hand, it's been staffed by the wrong people for decades. That's the issue. So it's not about some subterranean group that's pulling the strings. The structure of government is broken. And by the way, this is what they're dealing with in Europe. You go through election after election. Well, I'm going to throw this party out and I'm going to put this party in. At some point, people have to realize the whole government is broken. And you have to reorganize the state. Mm-hmm. That's where we are.
What you don't understand, sent $5. Successful business and leaders first come together and put in massive amounts of time, effort, and focus into a small endeavor. Then they put it into practice and make needed adjustments. Start small and build out. Set goals and have standards.
Yep.
True. Yep. Absolutely. Anonymous sent $5. Did Cameron expect Israel to be as militarily successful as it was in the last war? Why are Israel so militarily successful if they lack the spiritual sense of God that Gentiles do? Cam?
Yeah, so I can answer this question. If you look historically, they haven't been. They haven't been very effective.
That's why they need us.
Yeah.
That's why they need us. There's a mythology about the state of Israel, but that state is basically dependent economically, politically, militarily on the United States. Without us, nothing functions. And just to be clear on this, if you go back to 1973, the Israelis almost lost that war. Okay, and that was at a time when they had real asymmetric military power in the region. I'm not going to go into the details, but I would quibble with the premise of the question, which is that Israel has this bespoke military that has exerted its dominance through time. That's really not the case.
Yep, I would agree with that. Mike Hawk, 420 Blazing,
hey buddy,
sent $10. Here's a very intelligent and enlightened comment. Also, bleeps tongue my bleep.
Thank you, Mike Hawk.
Thank you. He was a fan of the old show.
Matty O sent $5. The blonde-haired lady in red is looking hot, as always. I'm glad Nick is okay. He's made too much noise lately talking about the cucking and de-radicalizing of the right. Next 4 years, we're going to need him and you for more than ever.
Stop
Merry
sipping.
Christmas,
Stop
guys.
glazing.
No.
If anything,
Simp
glaze
more.
me. If anything, simp for me.
Everyone needs to simp more.
We need some kind of like special effect when these simps
Yes.
just ooze out this effusive, oh, you're so beautiful, Rebecca. Oh my God.
No, I need it. It's ego gratifying.
I've got to work on some sound effects for the
I
show or
need
something.
it. No. Vince and I need it.
Yeah, Cameron,
We need the-
remember when I taught you what the term simp meant?
What does it mean?
Yeah,
I mean, I know what it
Texas.
means, but is it short for something?
I did not know what it meant. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it an acronym?
No, I don't think so. I just know what it means.
I know what it means.
But,
Everybody knows.
yeah, you're just...
Blonde, I heard you have a big RAC, I guess. I don't know.
It is an acronym. What the fuck?
R-A-C-K.
Simpleton. Oh,
No,
Simpleton.
Simpleton.
Okay.
No,
Simpleton.
no. I think that suckers idolizing mediocre pussy.
Ah,
Oh, really?
there
Is
we
that
go.
okay? That's
Yeah,
funny.
see, I always
Yeah.
wondered.
I don't think so. I think it comes from. I think simping means it's derived from sympathy, and the concept is that if you're a simp, you're sympathetic. You're sympathizing with the woman and trying to curry favor based on that.
Well, now I feel like
If
adult, and
Trying to get to her milkers.
I've embarrassed myself in front of Cameron by saying the P word. So let's move on.
Yeah,
big what?
Anonymous said, Blonde,
many-
I hear you have a big bleep. Can you confirm?
How many asterisks are in
4.
there?
A big dick?
Big. I think it was 5 asterisks.
4 is 4 asterisks.
A big.
Rack.
Oh, yeah. I have a
unbleep it.
huge dick. That is what's going on.
Bangkok.
Wonderful. Is there a telegram for the show?
There's not, but we should do that.
We should do
It gets
that.
a little sussy sometimes if you start a Telegram group, but I'm okay with it. I'm down with it.
I'm in a lot of sus Telegram groups. It's fine.
Yep.
The
That can't
key
be
is
it.
just
that
to
really
be
it? Refresh.
the person that you are all the time, even when you're talking to strangers online.
I just mean with people putting
Oh, wait,
threats.
there
and,
it
like,
is.
doing-
Blonde, I hear you have a big butt. Can you confirm? Now it's
No,
now
don't.
it shows me, but it's censored. We'll
Yeah,
have to
they
work that
censor
out.
certain words.
My butt is the appropriate size for a 37-year-old white woman that has had 2 children.
These simps want you to do a 360.
I will do no such
Listen,
thing.
this is getting a little out of hand,
A
okay?
little
We need to
out of
pass
hand.
a little bit of the love to
I don't know.
The left and the right here.
I don't know. Our viewership is at 3,588. So
All
they're,
right, never
they're
mind.
liking
Keep
what we're
doing
putting
it.
down. Rebecca, get
We
up
do
and
have a
us-
dress
I
code
will
for
not.
her.
Yes, which I've been adhering to strictly.
Yes. Okay, good.
Except before the show, he made fun of my hair being so big. Probably because I asked him if he wanted something.
I was like, what is this? Married with Children? Are you the chick from Married with Children?
That didn't work.
Peggy, yeah.
It's a Nancy Gribble thing. That's what it is. Oh, I'm seeing in the live chat that it's difficult to use power chats. I've heard this complaint from a few people. If you want to be a weekly subscriber, a monthly subscriber, per episode subscriber, you can also go to subscribestar.com/the backlash. Subscribestar is pretty easy to use. It's a tight website. Where else can you find us?
The
backlash.net.
/donate.
There's
of course.
different ways to donate.
Didn't
on
we
there,
start
yeah.
a Patreon?
I believe we have
We're
a
going to get banned from Patreon.
We are immediately going to get
shouldn't-
banned from Patreon. We shouldn't even bother.
Yeah.
But Subscribestar has been very good.
The best way for people to get funds to us is the backlash.net/donate because the percentage that they take out is much less.
Well, yeah, but power chats are fun.
Power
It's a whole
chats are
segment.
really
We're doing the power chats. The power chats are fun. I'm saying for anybody that wants to do like some sort of monthly recurring subscription and make the most of it, actually doing it through the website
Help us grow
and
the
not
show.
through Subscribestar or Patreon or whatever. That is the best. Friends, that was all the super chats that I had.
Thank you guys for supporting the show. Thanks for helping to grow the show. We're not going to be able to do it without you guys because,
true.
There's all these other shows that exist that grow to the size that they are, these massive shows. They're all propped up by
The
the
audience,
people that we hate. And, well, I'm talking about like the Daily Wire and,
Oh.
all the reason why
I
they
thought you
get
were
so
talking
big
about
is
like the
because-
whatever podcast or something. I'm sure they have backers
Yeah.
though.
Well, so we're
I
never
thought
going to be
this
able
was
to
a big
grow
thing
without.
about how you love the audience, and you're like,
We
oh
love
no,
the
it's
audience,
propped
yeah.
up by the Jews.
We're only going to be able to grow with you guys. So
But there are a few
Mike
more coming
Hawk.
through.
Yeah, we just got a couple more super chats just in. Mike Hawk 420 Blazing sent $10. The Israeli military not being great. I thought blanks.
Ace probably said that. Yeah.
Yeah. How do I?
Probably said that word. Well, I think it's good. I think
We're
it's fine that it's
amazing at manual labor and self-discipline. Also, Blonde, you look amazing tonight, and your co-hosts aren't massive blank holes.
Assholes, pussies.
I don't know what it says. It ends with an S.
assholes, probably.
Maybe.
Assholes,
I don't know. Maybe the P word. What you don't understand, send another $5. You can use prepaid debit cards and proxy accounts to send chats
Oh,
safely.
okay,
That's
great.
also true. And Maddie O sent $5. Let's see. There it is. Do you guys ever see a day when we could do colors? I already see
Yep.
this. Show is going to be huge. Knew it would be simp free. I just feel like we are living in the Twilight Zone where now talking about a certain tribe is no longer spicy.
Hey, Cameron's laughing. Look at that. Look at that. I can never get him to laugh with my jokes, and
You
then
did it,
Simp
Matty-o.
Free is always. When I was in Texas with him, we were traveling to go see
Ron Paul.
Ron Paul. Can we say that? Okay, yeah. We were traveling to go see Ron Paul. I was talking about simp, and I was showing him some TikTok memes, and he was like dying. He was like laughing. I can't get him to laugh with but the simp thing, it just always makes him laugh. On the Ron Paul thing, I think I've told this story on my show. You walk into Ron Paul's office, and in the hallway, in the entrance, he's got this massive picture of the USS Liberty signed by all the survivors.
Yep.
Right.
Really?
Pretty based, yeah.
Yep.
Wow.
To address Mattio's question, I do see a day where we can do call-ins because
we could do.
Right now, I could fire up a Twitter space and port over directly to that, and we could bring people in the way that Alex Jones does on his show through Twitter. And I do foresee a day when we do that, when we get sponsors.
Well, we've got the technology to actually do like a number where people can call in from a number.
From a cell phone, we could do actual calls.
It'll be like a number every time. It'll be a different number. But yeah, we can put that up on screen.
We
We'll
have
to
big
shorten
plans for the show. We can't do it without you guys, though. So please, if you have the ability, wait a little while to pay off your debt and
take out a loan and send it to us.
And go to the backlash.net.
Just don't be a simp when you call in.
Yeah, don't
There
be a
we go.
fucking simp.
There you go.
More
glazing.
simping. More simping. That was such a fun show. Thank you, everybody, so much for joining us. This is The Backlash. You will see us every Thursday at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time for the foreseeable future on my ex, blondes_tweets, my YouTube channel, Blonde in the Belly of the Beast. Check it out on Rumble, The Daily Veracity on Vince James. This is Dave. This
And then
is
all our
Cameron.
X's too.
This
All
is
our X
Rebecca.
accounts.
Right,
Who
Art
did I
sent
forget? This is
$10.
Cameron.
Simp is short for simpering, which means something that just got
Are you
off my screen.
flexing?
I am flexing.
Simp is short for
Gross.
simpering, which means
These
desperately
people got to start
affectionate
glazing
flattery.
me.
What does glazing mean?
Glazing means like you're glazing him up. You're Mike Hawk again.
F-slur was the derogatory word in the last chat. Thank you for clarifying.
Thanks, Mike.
I'm going to have to see if there's a censorship toggle button because that's
You
not,
got to untoggle.
not
it.
No,
acceptable.
you can.
right.
You can switch the words that you censor.
More on-air meetings. Okay, thank you so much. This is The Backlash. Join us next week. See you guys later.